Chapter 687, Desire to Win. Chapter 687, Desire to Win. Proofreader, Papatonks. Zhuofan had been standing there for a long time before his eyes finally shined. He gasped. I see it now, Senior. Yi Lin might have the purest heaven dragon soul, while mine is the most jumbled up. He has the most orthodox soul, and I have a second-rate one. But my second-rate dragon soul does not mean it's weaker than the real deal. It might be even stronger, right? Dan Qingxin shook his head. Your words are right, but can't you choose your words better? You make it sound like since you have a second-rate dragon soul, that makes mine, which is meshed up with a sword, sound ugly. In any case, this is called evolution. Zhuofan nodded, his heart understanding. That's right. In this world, there might not be anyone who understood the power of dragon souls like decimating dragon ancestor. He taught Yi Lin, so he knew the strongest way to use a dragon soul. But that use was limited to the dragons. And it's not dragons who are the strongest, but humans. So while the ancient times had the 5 great sacred beasts, it also had the 10 great emperors. These emperors all comprehended the Tao, working their way from weakness to strength in overlooking the masses. They did not rely on talents or gifts, but on their insights to create arts and cultivation methods to make humanity strong. They used constant adaptations to overcome the natural talents of the 5 great sacred beasts. In other words, the fact that the dragon ancestor knew how to use the dragon soul was nothing much. Zhuofan could also create an even better way of using it. This meant the changes that one goes through as he comprehended the Tao. Zhuofan's confusion cleared up in an instant. His eyes were filled with confidence. Yi Lin had the dragon race's rightful inheritance. But so what? He had all kinds of powers mixed into this dragon soul. And he would use them all to create an even better one, stronger than the rightful inheritance. This thought filled Zhuofan with battle spirit. He could not wait to fight that guy. Cupping his hands, Zhuofan spoke with the utmost respect. Thank you, Senior, for waking me. Now I know how to fight. Ha ha ha. I haven't done much to help you. It's your realizations that did so. I hope that in 3 days, you will create an extraordinary move, refine your heaven dragon soul, and make that boy see the truth, that your demonic dragon will be much stronger than his orthodox one. Ha ha ha. Dan Qingxin laughed, looking at Zhuofan like he was his disciple. Dan Qingxin pointed at Zhuofan's ring. Although I didn't help you, I will take it since you accepted my favor. So will you help this old man? Ha ha ha, of course. Going into danger for Senior is all worth it. After you, Senior. Zhuofan waved and opened his ring. Dan Qingxin laughed and slipped right in. Next was waiting for Zhuofan to enter that realm again, and look for a chance to slip out. 2 hours later, in the dusk's fading glow, Zhuofan returned to the demon scheming sex lodgings. His mind was filled with thoughts on how to adapt the heaven dragon soul in these 3 days. However, he was met with familiar faces, just as he entered the courtyard. Chu Qingqing, Yongning, Shuanger, and even the girls from Mystical Heaven sect were here. Startled, Zhuofan felt suspicious. What are these broads up to now? Fiend Yang saw him arrive and ran over. Just where did you run off to? We haven't seen you since the Superior 3 sex stage was over. I thought something happened to you. Whatever could happen. I'm more curious about what you all are up to. Zhuofan eyed them all. Fiend Yang shrugged. You're usually fine, but isn't there another freakish guy out there? I feared you 2 freaks would blow up with your nasty tempers, fighting God knew where. These girls were worried as well. I must say, you sure are a ladies' man. Hee hee hee. You came to Double Dragon Gathering, and coming out, you have a whole entourage of women. Venerable, please be more serious. We are only coming along with Qingqing. Shui Ruohua flushed red at his words and glared at him. Shrugging, Fiend Yang just smiled. Chu Qingqing was the picture of tranquility throughout the teasing, with a faint smile on her face. Yi Lin isn't normal, and might be even stronger than you. Are you still going to fight him? Of course, that's all the more reason I must fight. Zhuofan let out a breath as he looked at Chu Qingqing. Do you believe I can win? Chu Qingqing gave him a deep look and smiled. Of course. Truly? Not even I believe I can. Zhuofan looked at her oddly. To be honest, I'm not in the least confident in this fight. I'll definitely lose. Chu Qingqing giggled. What's this? The great steward Zhuo lacking confidence for once? Zhuo Fan recalled Yi Lin's terrible golden flame, an orthodox heaven dragon soul. Then he thought of how to beat him, and whether it would work, and his face became serious. Do you really want to fight? From the bottom of your heart? Chu Qingqing asked. Zhuo Fan gave a firm nod. Even when it is so hopeless, I must overcome this obstacle. I have to fight. This is fate. Then you will win. Chu Qingqing beamed. Zhuo Fan started and didn't know how to answer. Chu Qingqing turned to the rest. Let's go. He needs time to get ready. We better not disturb him. Chu Qingqing did not look at Zhuo Fan again, leisurely leaving. The girls looked baffled. Leaving just like that? You barely talked. Meeting after so long, you should be closer than ever. Yongning and Schwanger were even more stunned. They had come with Chu Qingqing to learn from her how to get closer to Zhuo Fan. But from what they saw, there was not an ounce of friendliness in their chat. Zhuo Fan just stood there as well, watching Chu Qingqing go. He didn't say anything to stop her or go after her. As if the two were purely platonic, everyone doing whatever. Yongning rushed after her. Sister Qingqing, is that all you came here to ask? Only if he will fight? Just how close are the two of you? There's nothing going on. Chu Qingqing smiled. I just wanted to know what he wanted to do so I could support him. Nothing else matters. The girls exchanged glances, feeling baffled. How is it not important? The least you can do is give him some words of encouragement. Let him know your feelings. Only Yin Shuang remained thoughtful. Then she said, Sister Qingqing, since not even Steward Zhuo is confident of winning, why are you so sure he will win? Isn't it obvious? Since he is earnest in fighting, he will win. Even if he doesn't believe it himself, I believe without a shred of doubt. Because whatever he really wants to do, I trust that he will succeed. Chu Qingqing smiled as she said. The girls found it somewhat understandable. Qingqing is Zhuo Fan's greatest support, always believing in him. Maybe this is the best kind of encouragement. They might not speak, but their intentions are clear. This is mutual understanding. The two might not admit it, but the girls could see that it was another kind of love, simply at the range of soul mates. Back with Zhuo Fan, the girls had now left, and he was just standing there confused. This girl is so good at reading people, it makes me vexed. She's always so perfect in her actions, even understanding me more than I do myself. Zhuo Fan, she said you're getting ready for the fight. Is that true? You've fought so many times in the double dragon manner so far. Yet not once have you made any preparations. When it came to fighting, you shirked it off, not wanting to. This time, winning will be very hard for us. So are you getting ready? Are you really going to fight that freak, Yi Lin? Fiend Yang looked him in the eye and sighed. Leaving others aside, I can see he isn't normal. I advise you not to fight Ultimate Clarity Sect, and end up wasting men for nothing. Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed, and he shook his head. No, I didn't fight before because I didn't feel like it. Those guys were just too weak. But this time, I must fight with my life on the line. If I fall back now, it'll be just like Wen Tao said. My success in the future will fall short, if not stop completely. A cultivator has to sometimes face obstacles head-on, to the death. Zhuo Fan laughed and entered his room, closing the door behind him. Tell everyone I'll be in seclusion for 3 days. I vow to defeat Yi Lin. Fiend Yang's heart shook, looking at where Chu Qingqing was going, and chuckled. These two sure understand each other. He just said he wasn't confident, and now he's pumped to try. Like the girl said, Zhuo Fan does not believe it, but his heart wants to win all the same. In that case, all of Demon Scheming Sect's elites will brave the dangers with him. They would not hesitate to go in even if it came to their deaths at the hands of that monster. Fiend Yang shouted, filled with zeal himself. Chapter 688, Breakthrough. Chapter 688, Breakthrough. Proofreader, Papatonks. As of right now, I have 3 powers that I can use against the decimating golden flame. Azure Flame, Purple Lightning, and Qilin Arm. Zhuo Fan sat cross-legged in his room, carefully pondering his strength and his enemies. These three powers were on the same grade as the golden flame, while only their level differed. Purple lightning was divided into 12 heavens, while the current him could unleash the 5th heaven at best. From what he saw of the golden flame, and its degree of power, he needed the purple lightning to be at the 6th heaven at the least. As for azure flame and Qilin arm, he hadn't even begun developing them. The two sides' advantages and disadvantages were laid before him. Yi Lin won in quality, while he won in quantity. In other words, he was a mess. He had so many tricks on him, yet none that could measure up to that guy. Adding to that heaven dragon soul, something the guy was adept at using compared to him, made it so all his trump cards were useless. Not even dumb luck could give me a win at this point. This analysis only showed his downsides, while he did have something going for him. It was something Yi Lin had no way of having. Yi Lin's methods were too specialized, all coming from the dragon ancestor. My methods are all random and flexible, not something every expert can handle. But with how resourceful they are, most fights are won. Mixing all these random skills will unleash a most unstoppable and unpredictable skill. Zhuofan's side, he and the master he never saw, 9 Serenities Emperor, were very similar. The 9 Serenities secret records contained others' ultimate skills, with none of them coming from 9 Serenities Emperor himself. His sole creation was demon transformation art, which he never got to train with. Even so, he was an expert in stealing others' skills, becoming one of the 3 strongest emperors. Wasn't this the same situation he was in? A jack of all trades. However, following in his master's footsteps, he believed that combining all these ultimate skills would be more than enough to face Yi Lin's orthodox dragon soul. Even a mixed bag like us can stand tall. Wait, aren't I going too far with this? Though I've never received orthodox teachings in all my lives, that doesn't mean I should go about calling myself a mixed bag. There's no self-respect in it. Smiley face. The word here has a variety of meanings like mixed breed, bastard, half-breed, sob. Face twitching. Zhuofan immediately abolished the thought of being a mixed bag of tricks. He calmed down and directed his senses inward to combine all he knew. In Zhuofan's mind, the huge dragon had its eyes closed, as a rainbow of colors washed over its scales. But then the light began to fade as a mote of azure fire appeared on the dragon's forehead. Moments later, a purple flash streaked its body, crackling. Next came several red glows over the dragon's body. Sometimes, there was even something black crawling all over it, soon engulfing it. In this way, Zhuofan explored how to use his heaven dragon soul best. At the same time, Yi Lin was also cross-legged in the ultimate clarity sect's courtyard, as the heat gathering around him grew stronger and stronger. In his mind, a golden sea of fire was traversed by a huge dragon with fiery and savage eyes. Humph, a dragon is a most savage creature, hard and strong. No one in the world knows more about them than Master. A heaven dragon soul is not a match to my decimating golden flame, to unleash its full potential. Zhuofan, your heaven dragon soul, can only show around 20% of its power. You'll see I'm right. With an evil grin, Yi Lin muttered to himself, filled with confidence. He could practically see himself winning this fight. Outside, Wu Qingqiu passed by his door, and shook his head as he looked at the shut door. Next to him was another ultimate clarity sect disciple filled with curiosity. Junior brother is always laid back. Why does he go for seclusion all of a sudden? Has the world gone crazy? Ha ha ha. That's what happens when he meets his fated adversary. I'd be the same if I were him. Wu Qingqiu chuckled and said, let's go and not disturb him. 3 days later, the battle will be more important than us. If we annoy him, he will be so pissed he'll take it out on you. The other guy was taken aback and rushed after Wu Qingqiu, thinking of Yi Lin's terrible power. If we do disturb him, why would he take it out on me? Why else? I am his senior brother and also his friend, ha ha ha. Wu Qingqiu laughed like it was natural. Then the disciple shook his head with a bitter smile. This little monster only cares about his senior brother. Meanwhile, in the Universal Righteous Sect, Zhao Dezhu was getting ready for the challenge stage 3 days from now. Juniors, 3 days from now, Sword God Sect's strongest 10 members have taken heavy soul damage. They are of no threat. The crux is demon scheming sect, Zhuofan in particular. Everything will be in our grasp if we defeat this monster. But senior brother, he has the heaven dragon soul as the exalted dew. Does senior brother have a marvelous plan to thwart this headache? One disciple complained. Zhao Dezhu frowned and suddenly said, Relax, I already have a plan in mind. The heaven dragon soul is amazing, but just a beast soul. Even if he is freakish, he is all alone, and we can capture it. I plan on using the soul chain array to lock it in place. The soul chain array? Everyone cried out in shock, looking around at each other with difficulty. One disciple was nervous. Senior brother, the soul chain array can restrain monsters, but it will put our lives at risk, using our souls as chains. One wrong move, and he will break out of the array, destroying our souls in the process. This is not a fight to the death. We can't. Coward. However, Zhao Dezhu glared and cursed the speaker. Humph, have you all forgotten who we are? We are Universal Righteous Sect's disciples. At a time when the Ultimate Clarity Sect and other righteous sects do not abide by justice, and are in cahoots with the demon, we alone value righteousness. It falls unto us alone to keep it. If we don't stop demon scheming sect right here, something unimaginably disastrous will happen. Western Land's superior 3 sects will have 2 belonging to demons. Heavens above, this is the demon's plan to subjugate the Western Lands. How could we let that happen? Zhao Dezhu spoke with fervor and zeal, reprimanding the disciples with righteous fury. The disciple who spoke hung his head. But even if we risk our lives, can we block him still? Yes. Haven't I told you evil can never win over good? As long as I, Zhao Dezhu, am standing, we will grasp victory. Flaying his fists around, Zhao Dezhu's straight face inspired the confidence of victory. As if his attitude was infectious, the other disciples raised their fists and shouted, Righteousness we shall prevail. Good will win. The thundering roar grew louder, as it filled them with a passionate thirst for battle. Like this, every sect made their preparation for the last stage. Some to keep their status, some to take others' status, and some just for the thrill of battle. Creak. 3 days later, Zhuofan came out of his room, before the solemn faces of his team. His eyes were sharp, his aura strong, and it even revealed he had entered the 4th layer of Radiant Stage. However, although it was just 1 layer, Zhuofan's eyes left everyone gaping. They were blacker than ever before, brimming with unspeakable power, ready to swallow everything. Zhuofan, are you all right? Frowning, Fiend Yang gave him a deep look, not recognizing him at all. In just 3 days, Zhuofan's entire aura had changed. It was as if he had been transformed. Zhuofan's looked himself up and down, and looked at them oddly. What, aren't I the same? In that instant, Zhuofan's aura reverted to normal, and caused them to pause. They were still phased out, unable to determine if what they saw really happened or not. Why was it that we felt such danger coming from Steward Zhua? It's like he wanted to destroy everything. Fiend Yang probed. Zhuofan, just what did you do in there? Are you confident of winning against Yilin? I'm still not sure. Zhuofan frowned and shook his head. In these 3 days, I have combed through all the skills I knew and found some flexible enough to fight Yilin with. I just don't know if they'll be enough. And there are some among them that I'm not too clear on their effects. I'll need more time to think before I know more. Fiend Yang's eyelid twitched as he stared down hard. If you succeed, that will be the day you'll be even more frightening, far more than Yilin. I am sure of it. Zhuofan blinked doubtfully, only to see Fiend Yang smile and wave him off. It's just a hunch of mine. Don't mind it. The Superior 3 Sects Challenge stage is about to begin. Let's go. Let's. Zhuofan did not press Fiend Yang for answers, taking the lead of the team as they walked, filled with more power than ever. He did not realize that the gazes on him were not just of amazement but fear. He never noticed how his teammates looked at him with nothing but dread the minute he came out. That was no illusion. Zhuofan went through great changes once more. Chapter 689, Soul Chain Array. Chapter 689, Soul Chain Array. Proofreader, Papatonks. The arena had been packed full since early morning, And not just with the nation's delegations, but with each sect's team as well. Even with his soul heavily wounded, the pale Han Yunfeng still dragged his weary body over to watch. Today was the day the entire western lands were being shuffled. A mere lower 3 sect had been making its way before the superior 3 sects, and challenging these powerhouses that had remained untouched for thousands of years. Everyone was waiting for this moment to see if these kings' crowns would be sitting on their heads much longer. Whoosh! The judge once again made his appearance in the ring. He bowed before the exalted and looked at the crowd with pink cheeks. It looked like he was excited about today, just like anyone else. The 5 sects teams enter. Ultimate Clarity Sect, Hellion Flame, and Universal Righteous Sect took the lead in appearing at the same time. Sword God Sect and Demon Scheming Sect's team leaders followed them, walking casually. The instant Zhuofan appeared, the crowd went wild. It was common knowledge by now that the only reason the tiny lower 3 sect could reach up to this point was because of this disciple paving its way. Of course, everyone would pay attention to this outstanding leader. They were all eager to see what kind of miracle he would create next. Only Universal Righteous Sect looked at Zhuofan as a plague on these lands, filled with hatred and not little fear. The judge roamed his cold eyes over everyone, and while it was quite obvious, he had to stick to the program. Sword God Sect disciples, do you wish to challenge the superior 3 sects? Of course, Wen Tao shouted, filled with vigor. The judge nodded. Such valor. They clearly have damaged souls, yet still come to fight. They're true Sword God Sect disciples. The judge turned to Zhuofan to shout. Demon Scheming Sect disciples, do you challenge the superior 3 sects? The judge's voice echoed in the ears of every person here. All eyes were now on Zhuofan, eager for his response. Zhuofan muttered something, then eyed Yi Lin before he shouted. That's a matter of course because I am the strongest one here. A clamor erupted. Zhuofan's promise was more than just confidence. Everyone shook at his words. We know you're really tough, but you still have a way to go to become the strongest. Don't forget there's still Western Land's best talent, Wu Qingqiu. Even if we dismiss him, there's still the up-and-coming Yi Lin. While the two had yet to truly fight, from what they had shown so far, everyone believed Yi Lin was no less than Zhuofan. Why would you even dare to make such a bold statement? Exalted Double Dragons shared a look, puzzled as well. Everyone knew Zhuofan was very calm, and not a braggart, unaware of where he stood. Yi Lin's next words made everyone understand what was going on. Zhuofan, I am the strongest disciple in Western lands. You're just the runner-up, and my senior brother is third. Yi Lin spoke with power and confidence. The crowd grew even more excited now. Seeing the two staring daggers at each other, they were taken by an odd feeling. It was as if they were two tigers, fighting over a single mountain. These two's fight has got to be awesome. Wu Qingqiu shook his head. Junior brother, don't drag me into your fight. Besides, I've been the best talent in Western lands before you. So how could you just put me in third place? You shouldn't have said it even if it's true. Wu Qingqiu, is your junior brother a secret senior brother for 2 decades? Ha ha ha. Yanemo felt like teasing him. Then he felt sad. It used to be only Wu Qingqiu, who was his opponent, his target. By defeating him, he'd be the best in Western lands. But as fate had it, there were 2 freaks around as well, throwing Wu Qingqiu behind in the 3rd spot. What would that make of him? It was like his aim all along was to get further and further away from him. Yanemo sighed, feeling just as depressed as Wu Qingqiu. Only Zhao Deju's eyelid twitched, filled with burning hatred as the twos faced off. The Superior 3 Sects Challenge stage was conducted in order. You've yet to pass Universal Righteous Sect, yet you only care about that punk from Ultimate Clarity Sect? Are you taking us for chopped liver? You're too damn insufferable. Just you wait, Zhuofan. Zhao Deju glared with hatred as he huffed, his eyes taking a colder glimmer. Rivals must fight to establish a winner. Exalted He Ran looked at Exalted Bai Mei and chuckled. Ha ha ha, Zhuofan does know what's going on. He's not at all careless before he faces his real opponent. Before one wins or not, all must hold confidence in their hearts, or the battle would be lost before it started. Zhuofan's declaration of the strongest has just cut off all retreat. Soon, they will both show all they are made of. This will be a battle worth seeing. Exalted by Mei looked gleeful, even more eager than the crowd below. Who? The judge stood between Zhuofan and Yilin, cutting the sparks between them. Glaring at Zhuofan and then at Yilin, the judge huffed. What are you two staring at? It's far too soon for you to fight. You'll get your turn soon enough. Why the rush? SSS. Zhao Dezhu rolled his eyes, choking on his anger. Hey judge, you're supposed to be impartial. Couldn't you be the littlest bit fair? What were you trying to say? Why have you left us out? By them getting their turn, does that mean the universal righteous sect is bound to lose? If even you think we're losers, what's the point of fighting then? Universal righteous sect disciples' faces fell one after the other, silent and sullen. The same thing was happening at Hellion Flame's side. Universal righteous sect was not the only one before the top. There was also Hellion Flame. They weren't that hateful since their leader, Yen Mo, was no saint, and neither was he stubborn. He truly admired Zhuo's power, so he was just a little bit sad, that was all. Thanks to the judge's intervention, the two returned to their positions. Next up was the fight between Universal Righteous Sect and Sword God Sect. As expected, Sword God Sect's team had wounded souls, and against Universal Righteous Sect's shameless act of saving their strength had routed them, cutting their challenge short. Now was Demon Scheming Sect's turn to fight Universal Righteous Sect in a team battle. Everyone was on the edge of their seats, watching the last challenger begin his fight. The two gatekeepers made their signs and opened the door to the fighting grounds. Zhuofan touched the thunder ring as he took his team inside. Universal Righteous Sect was not one to tarry either. Whoosh! The two teams were back in that secluded valley. Zhuofan waved, letting the rest of his team stand back a bit while he went ahead alone. He then showed an evil smirk. You guys stay out of this. I want to use these guys as dummies for my move. Zhuofan, your arrogance knows no bounds. You dare take all 10 of us alone? Zhao Dezhu squinted and roared. Zhuofan mocked. In every battle, you never once went all out. I alone am more than enough. In fact, you should be freaking honored scheming cowards like you even get me. Why you? Zhao Dezhu's mouth twitched as he glared at Zhuofan. His aura shook, but it soon regained calm as he sported an odd smile. Universal Righteous Sect has always fought for righteous justice. Even if everyone misunderstands our honorable pursuit, it matters not. As long as we can stop you demons from getting in the superior 3 sects, we will stop the demonic path from growing. We will not blink in the face of death. We will not falter. You said we didn't fight all out in our battles. Fine, now we will use everything to deal with you, demon. It doesn't matter if the others join. We don't care about some nobody demons. We only want to deal with the main evil. Zhao Dezhu made a sign and charged. 10-man seal, soul chain array. The other 9 disciples also moved, landing in a circle around Zhuofan as they made their signs. At that moment, the wind changed, blowing hard as the sounds of rattling chains echoed about. Vague chains shot out from every disciple, connecting them and forming a tight circle. An invisible barrier formed and trapped Zhuofan and the 10 people from the rest of the world. Chapter 690, Dragon Souls Change. Chapter 690, Dragon Souls Change. Proofreader Papatonks. The Soul Chain Array? Wu Qingqiu's brow shook, looking at the scene in front of him with a dumbstruck face. For once, Zhao Dezhu isn't blowing his horn. The Soul Chain Array requires 10 souls to link together. Once it's broken, death awaits. This has always been used as a last resort. Now just to block Zhuofan, they are risking their lives. It truly fits their righteous beliefs. Have we been wrong about them all along? Yen Mo cocked an eyebrow mocking. We'll know it as we watch them fight. Maybe they'll quit halfway like they always did. Wu Qingqiu pondered and then nodded, his face showing a trace of doubt. The Soul Chain Array is quite amazing. As long as they persevere, not even Zhuofan's Heaven Dragon soul could breach it. I don't think they plan on pulling back. Do you, junior brother? Wu Qingqiu asked Yilin, who was silent. Only his eyes stared unblinkingly at the chains rattling about. An average heaven dragon soul will find it hard to get out of a 10 expert entrapment. Although, Zhuofan, you are a sacred beast inheritor, your heaven dragon soul shouldn't be limited to its basic power. Yilin squinted, eager to watch how this play unfolded. Rattle. The sharp and crisp sounds of the chains could be heard as the 10 people were tied by them, swaying in a precise rhythm. Zhuofan gave the circle a once-over and snickered. He shot straight for Zhao Dezhu, arriving in a blink. His almighty fist smashed head-on. Whoosh! At this moment, a faint chain came out of nowhere for Zhuofan, and locked his mighty Qilin arm. Stalled, Zhuofan felt sapped of power, and his fist was locked in place. Frowning, Zhuofan was puzzled about how that happened. He gave his right a firm shake, hoping to remove the pesky chain. But tens of other chains came at him from everywhere. With his right holding him in place, Zhuofan ended up with all his limbs sealed up in chains. The chains rattled, and he was hung in midair. No matter what he tried to do, he couldn't shake them off. His power was also being locked at the same time, and he was unable to make use of it. Steward Zhua, Qi Chonglong, and the others cried out in worry, and attacked the 10 people. However, they didn't get very far as tens of chains shot from the 10 people whipping them away. Demon Scheming Sect's team spat blood, overwhelmed by the force they were struck with. Is this the power of a superior 3 sect? They couldn't defeat one of them even if they attacked together. Zhao Dezhu sneered at them. Demon Scheming Sect is but a tiny lower 3 sect. You've got lucky to reach the middle 3 sects. And now you dare lust for the superior 3 sects? Humph, that's delusional. Now that we 10 are united, no matter how you try to attack us, you will be facing all our power combined. That's why I said you all are insignificant little demons. We never cared about you. If not for this freak needing us to use this array, we wouldn't have bothered with you, ha ha ha. Universal Righteous Sect's other disciples laughed together, filled with scorn. Qi Chonglong gnashed his teeth and clenched his fists in anger. They knew as well that the higher they challenged, the weaker they became until it came to this team battle, where Zhuofan was the only one able to fight. While the Mystical Heaven sect had screwed them over in the singles, they were more than sure in their hearts. Even if Mystical Heaven sect hadn't done anything to stop them, it was almost impossible for them to challenge the others in singles with their strength. This left them heartbroken. They represented their sect in the Double Dragon Gathering, but each fight ended with them being useless and unable to do a single damn thing. Their morale had reached a whole new low. They were seen as nothing but clowns in every battle they played. And for what? Zhuofan saw through them as he said in a blaming tone. Why did you attack? I thought I told you to stand back and leave it alone. Qi Chonglong shook, and they all nodded. They saw Zhuofan's stern look, like a teacher rebuking them. You never got so far. This had long since stopped being your stage. But since you're here, just sit back and stay there. Witness the power of the strongest disciple in Western lands. Everything can change given time. You are only spectators now. It is up to you if you want to take this spot in the future. There's nothing to be sad about. They all jerked and saw his meaning. They were from a lower 3 sect, so they couldn't match a superior 3 sect's disciple. That was a fact. But they weren't weak, because they were lacking compared to the others. It was because the others had way more resources. Now that Zhuofan had brought them here, they would soon enjoy the same amount of resources. They would then test themselves to see if they were dragons or bugs. Everything did change with time. They would one day surpass these people, and become among the best in Western lands. Being sad and crestfallen now was just not worth it. Their eyes regained their conviction, thankful to Zhuofan's reminder. The fiends felt at ease as well. What a leader this Zhuofan turned out to be. At one time, he is sloppy, not giving a dime about anything. In another, he is responsible, becoming the mentor of Demon Scheming Sect's disciples. For a cultivator, what mattered most was not to be arrogant and overconfident. In this aspect, Zhuofan was undoubtedly the best leader for these geniuses. Beating them when they were cocky, and showing them what it means that there will always be someone better than you. Then encourage them when they are down, filling them with confidence and self-respect. I must say Fan is doing a good job guiding them as we, venerables, do. At least he doesn't skimp when the need arises. Fiend Yang chuckled, looking at the other two. They nodded, looking at Fan with admiration. It wasn't just them. Even the exalted double dragons, and the elders of every sect were impressed just as much. His ridiculous strength aside, based on his leading expertise, Fan was capable of commanding. Zhao Dezhu sneered at his words. Bringing a bunch of scum to this scene will only get them killed. Not just them, but you will die as well. Our soul chain array has locked your spirit. You can no longer control your body. No matter how strong you are, you can't show it, ha ha ha. Is it now? Then we'll have to see how my soul fares. Fan grinned. A heaven-shaking draconic roar rumbled. Fan's heaven dragon soul again took to the skies, wrapped in a shimmering prismatic glow, as it dyed the world in 7 colors. While the locked Fan kept shaking, ready to break out at any moment. Zhao Dezhu was not in the least bit worried, but excited instead. Ha ha ha, Fan, you've been duped. I've waited for this moment from the start. Our soul chain array locking your spirit is just a secondary effect. Its main purpose is to lock your soul. Now your soul will be crushed. Zhao Dezhu's team's hands changed and made different signs. Rattling chains shot into the air in hundreds, as they went for Heaven Dragon's soul from all directions. In a blink, the huge dragon was completely sealed up. The prismatic dragon struggled all the time, but it was still impossible to break away. Heaven Dragon's soul roared, its big eyes raging. As if the dragon's soul found it unexpected these chains would not break, even under all its power. Oh no! The soul chain array is universal righteous sect that has 10 people's souls linked together. They are using soul against soul. No matter how strong Heaven Dragon's soul is, it is just one. It may be far more powerful, but it won't last long against 10 souls united. Wu Qingqiu sighed. If this Heaven Dragon soul can't get out of this array fast, it will be worn down. Yi Lin nodded. That is regarding the main Heaven Dragon soul. But this would all change if he found a way to combine it with his strength. I wonder if he had managed to make Heaven Dragon soul change. And what would it become if he did? This is what bothers me most. Say what? The Heaven Dragon soul can change? Wu Qingqiu glanced at Yi Lin before turning back to see Fan. Chapter 691. Almighty Scarlet Dragon King. Chapter 691. Almighty Scarlet Dragon King. Proofreader Papatonks. Roar. The draconic roar rang in everyone's ears. The huge body encased in hundreds of chains thrashed around in fury, despite how useless it all was. It made everyone who watched it worry. Sister Qingqing, what now, what now? His body is stuck, and now his soul too. He looks doomed. Will he really die at the hands of that universal righteous sect? Danner was frantic, her adorable face red with worry. The other girls weren't that vocal, but they worried still. Xian Xiaoyu sneered. Humph. All the people he met so far were nothing until now. He is facing the experts of a superior 3 sect. Not even attacked from behind did they blink. Moreover, a demon like him should have died long ago. Danner, don't worry. He is aiming for ultimate clarity sex Yi Lin. Before that, he will not lose. Ignoring Xian Xiaoyu's obnoxious rant, Chu Qingqing still spoke with certainty. She then turned to watch Fan, neither frantic nor excited, completely confident. The girls eased at her words, leaving Xian Xiaoyu the only one feeling vexed and fuming. Why are you only looking at him and never at me? Roar! With another series of roars, the huge dragon finally grew tired. As the chains pulled, the prismatic glow slowly faded and twisted his body tighter. Zhao Dezhu lit up as he shouted, Ha ha ha, that dragon's soul is done for. Brothers, it's time we strike. Tear that dragon to pieces and kill him. Oh! With a shout of excitement, the others changed signs, and the chains started moving, pulling every which way and grinding hard on the dragon. It was not long before a pristine dragon's scale fell. As it fell, it faded, the energy it carried vanishing without a trace. The huge dragon roared in pain at the sky. Fan felt it too, his brow shaking hard, the only movement he was capable of. Zhao Dezhu was even more assured of success. He laughed. The punk has no ace up his sleeve. Break him, boys, break this dragon apart, and the whole western lands will echo our names. They were about to kill a heaven dragon soul after all. Therefore, they all started making quick signs, and the chains started grinding harder. More and more scales were ripped off, and Zhuofan just had a constant frown on his face. Ha ha ha, senior brother, he clearly can't take it. It looks like setting up the soul chain array was without dangers. The heaven dragon soul isn't much to look at. One disciple pointed at Zhuofan and mocked him. Zhao Dezhu nodded, tooting his horn now and again. I have told you already. I, Zhao Dezhu, shall grasp victory, ha ha ha. Right. Senior brother's name is indeed marvelous, grasping victory, ha ha ha. Another disciple was being a Toadai. Smiley face, it's a play on his name, saying that he can grasp anything and that he's in control. Until now, the Universal Righteous Sect was testing Zhuofan to see his response. Since this array worked against him, they were going all out, sending thousands of chains this time to tear the dragon apart. They were afraid the array would fall short, so they were going easy when attacking. But now, since they knew Zhuofan was hopeless against it, they had no qualms about finishing the huge dragon faster. Besides, the faster they ended him, the quicker they'd be able to bask in the glory and cheers of their fans. Universal Righteous Sect isn't a scheming coward, but enduring in silence. See, we're not only stopping a demonic sect from being a superior 3 sect, but are killing a heaven dragon soul. This is an incredible feat. Universal Righteous Sect's team pulled out all the stops, speeding up the huge dragon's destruction rate. Yenemo frowned. I never thought a true expert like Zhuofan would end up trapped and dead by Zhao Dezhu's team. Heaven Dragon Soul can also be tied up and unable to fight. Does that mean Demon Scheming Sect's advance stops here? Don't be so sure. Yilin's face was hard. His eyes stared ahead. The formation of the soul is just the basic appearance, while it is shaped further by every person's style. The sword soul is the same, and so is the heaven dragon soul, each molded by their truth. Until now, Zhuofan's heaven dragon soul has only shown its initial form, having no differentiating characteristic. Can it be that he has yet to comprehend anything? That's so disappointing, eh? Yilin's words got cut off as he noticed Zhuofan's look. He then cried out in surprise. I just knew his dragon soul wasn't just this. Yenemo had no time to react. He turned to Zhuofan and shouted, what is that? The heaven dragon soul is changing. Yilin snickered in glee. I can't wait to see just how different his heaven dragon soul is from mine, ha ha ha. Zhao Dezhu's team was still wallowing in premature success. But then the sudden shift around them caused them to feel like the chains were slipping, like they couldn't get any more scales from the dragon. Startled, they looked up at once to see the huge dragon unmoving, yet it had a different appearance. There was now a scarlet glow coming from it, oozing nefarious and creepy energy. It was this scarlet glow that rendered their chains useless. What the hell? Everyone looked at each other bug-eyed as to what was going on. Snickering, Zhuofan stared right at Zhao Dezhu. A bunch of children, that's all you are. You finally went all out. Ha ha ha. Then I should reply in kind as well. I'll show you what it means to run but can't hide. Zhuofan's eyes focused and shouted. Dragon Soul Variation Qilin Form Almighty Scarlet Dragon King. Boom. The huge dragon covered in hundreds of chains suddenly unleashed a tremendous power wave in all directions. The chains binding it rattled harder and harder, while the array itself was tipping towards collapse. Zhao Dezhu's team gasped in shock, their eyes reflecting their disbelief. The dragon soul should have been wrung dry by them. How was it that it could still fight? The next scene had them all understanding and slack-jawed. The dragon soul shone scarlet all over, its fangs growing and growing, taking a savage form as the scales regrew. Only this time they formed a tough armor, unlike the sleek and soft feel the previous scales gave. It roared at the sky, shaking the very heavens themselves. It was more than 10 times as powerful and ferocious as before. Rather than say it was a heaven dragon soul, it was more apt to call it a different kind of dragon soul, one that was worlds above. This is his changed dragon soul, Almighty Scarlet Dragon King? Yilin sighed. Not bad. By combining the sacred beast Qilin's power with the heaven dragon soul, you get a much stronger dragon soul variant. While not as good as my golden heaven dragon king, it's not a bad version either. At the very least, it contains all the power of a sacred beast. Ha ha ha, Zhuofan, you really are my fated adversary. Yi Lin was getting even more excited, eager for his battle with Zhuofan. However, while some were overjoyed, others were lamenting. Zhao Dezhu and company were completely lost for words, looking at each other with tears in their eyes. How the hell did the soul get from its deathbed to being stronger than ever? Does that mean all our efforts were for nothing? What took the cake was that it was looking even more dangerous. Now that they had invested their lives in this array, they couldn't pull back either. Zhao Dezhu pondered for a moment, then pointed at Zhuofan in shock. I got it. You didn't fight back once because you were waiting for us to use all our soul power, isn't it? Ha ha ha. I must say you are living up to your name, leader of Universal Righteous Sect. So you do have a slightly bigger brain. Zhuofan grinned. Every time you fought, you would call it quits soon after. That's not what I wanted to see. Now that you've invested your souls into this fight, we are now in a battle to the death. You either kill me or I kill you. Ha ha ha. Zhao Dezhu's team's heart sank, feeling duped. But then Zhao Dezhu lit up. Don't panic, we still have his dragon soul sealed. We have the upper hand. Boom. The scarlet dragon twisted, and the thousands of chains crumbled. Zhao Dezhu's team couldn't even react. All they did was spew blood, again and again, looking ready to breathe their last. You were saying? Zhuofan raised an eyebrow, putting on his trademark evil smile to complement his mocking gaze. Chapter 692, Ungrasped Victory. Chapter 692, Ungrasped Victory. Proofreader Papatonks. The dragon tail, seeping scarlet light, frivolously flicked about, yet the pressure it exerted felt like hell on the poor disciples of the Universal Righteous Sect. It was because this light tail swipe had their entire barrier shaking all over. I never thought his heaven dragon soul would exhibit such a change. Just what kind of enlightenment did he have to give birth to such a powerful heaven dragon soul? It's by far dozens of times stronger. By May, I don't think even we could pull it off. Exalted He Rant's eyes glittered in shock. Exalted by May echoed his amazement. So young, yet his realizations brought the heaven dragon soul to such a level. His future is bound to be glorious. Now I want to see who will be the winner between him and Yi Lin. Who will be worthy of being the best in Western lands? Raising an eyebrow, Exalted He Ran gave a nod of approval, his eyes shining with excitement. They were unaware that Zhuofan and Yi Lin were sacred beast inheritors. Their understanding of the soul was fundamentally different. Their praises were nowhere near enough. Zhuofan had fused the power of the strongest sacred beast, Qilin, with the heaven dragon soul, resulting in the almighty Scarlet Dragon King. While it was leagues above the previous dragon soul in terms of strength, a dragon soul came from the dragon race. And the one who knew dragons the most was the decimating dragon ancestor. In his capacity as an inheritor, Yi Lin's golden heaven dragon king had been molded to the best form for the heaven dragon soul to reach its full potential. In terms of power, it was naturally stronger than Zhuofan's half-breed. It was a truth Zhuofan was most aware of and had taken into consideration. He thought for now, showing this much was enough. Sporting an evil grin, Zhuofan flexed his mind, and the scarlet dragon flicked its tail. Like a steel sword, it went right through those illusory chains. With all the chains on Zhuofan snapped off, he could move again while Zhao Dezhu's team was puking blood, looking at the dragon in fear. The Scarlet Dragon King's power was beyond their imagination. The 10 of them united could do nothing to hold this dragon back, even for a second. They were entirely on the receiving end now. Unable to do anything to fight it, it would soon crush their barrier. With this monster's power, it was unknown how long the barrier would last. Once it collapsed, it spelled the destruction of their souls. This thought drove all of them to the verge of crying. They wouldn't have gone all out if they knew this would happen. Now they were going to die for their folly. Zhao Dezhu's brow shook, his face looking worse for wear, having lost his arrogance. He was even pleading. Zhuofan, can't we talk about this? We admit defeat. Let's just stop it here. Demon scheming sect can go on challenging, while we will be stepping down. The other 9 disciples bobbed their heads. Never before had they been more in favor of their senior brother's decision. The onlookers all huffed at the display. Wu Qingqiu even looked at them with disdain. Some people just never change. They want to shirk back again. Only this time, they had set up such a large array. The battle continued, as long as they did not take down the array. Talking at this point was no use. What if you lied about your defeat, planned, and duped your opponent at the end? On the other hand, if they were to take down the array, Zhuofan could use this chance to break the barrier when they were at their weakest. With the barrier tied to their souls, its destruction meant their deaths. So they had to talk it out with Zhuofan first, so that both sides stopped fighting. Or Zhuofan would kill them the moment he saw a chance. Because of this rotten soul chain array, their momentum and advantage proved to be their fatal weakness. The one in complete control of the situation was none other than Zhuofan, the one they had just tried to trap. Talk about cruel irony. That's what you get for being cocky all the time. You got what you deserved. Zhuofan eyed them coldly as he said, "Now you want to back off? It's a little late for that. Weren't you so bossy before? You ruined so many of my Heaven Dragon Soul's scales. And now you just want to flee? As if." Bam! With a loud sound, the Scarlet Dragon's tail flicked again, smashing the barrier and shaking the 10 disciples. They spat blood again, and could feel their insides boiling in pain. The barrier was shaking all over, ready to topple at any moment. Hee. Weren't you always yelling that good and evil can't coexist, purging demons and whatnot? Yours truly shall help you fulfill your lifelong mission and gain glory. Either you kill me or I kill you. From this small valley, only one side can walk out alive. Zhuofan shouted, his face twisted in savagery. Demon scheming sect's team snickered and taunted them, while the Universal Righteous Sect disciples were feeling worse than ever. Zhuofan clearly wanted them to fight to the last breath. If they both ended up losing, they would have a bargaining chip. But Zhuofan was just too strong, with a high chance of breaking away, destroying the barrier in the process. Everyone turned their eyes to Zhao Dezhu with a hopeful gaze, waiting for his orders. Zhao Dezhu frowned, looking around in thought, before he shouted with bravery, "Demon scum, don't get carried away. Do you think we have no way of defeating you? We thought of letting you live with respect for the heavens that care for life. But you forget. You are alone while we are 10 united. You can never match us in a fight to the death. Junior brothers fight. Let us show him that Universal Righteous Sect's justice is not something you can profane." Zhao Dezhu looked at the 9 disciples as he roared. "Remember this with me, Zhao Dezhu here, victory is grasped. No demon shall ever succeed." Roar! That speech enlivened all disciples. Once again, conviction burned in their chests. Their hands went through signs, and their power grew. Even the audience was touched by their valor, feeling awe. Wu Qingqiu took a deep breath and said, "Aside from Zhao Dezhu's bigotry, his valor is truly rare. I never thought that he would be able to show his heroic side in the end. I see no hero here, only a clown giving his last performance." Yan Emo mocked like he saw through it all. Wu Qingqiu started, giving him an odd look. Yan Emo smiled. "Brother Wu, you're a righteous cultivator and the ultimate clarity sect hardly ever resorts to treachery. You won't understand the meaning of a dignified hypocrite. In layman's terms, all bark and no bite. Would you ever start blathering all kinds of reasons when you try to encourage your fellow brothers to fight? What universal righteous? What grasping victory? Haha, it's nothing but a load of bullshit. Who here doesn't know that the one to truly grasp victory is the one with the bigger fist? If he'd been able to do that from the start, the matter would have been over and done with ages ago. Why waste time with such nonsense?" Then, Wu Qingqiu began. Yan Emo snickered. He's using them to pave his exit. Wait and see. This is the symbol of righteousness, standing against the vile demons. On Mystical Heaven Sect's side, Xian Xiaoyu saw the Universal Righteous Sect's disciples united against Zhuofan, and could not help but cheer. The girls rolled their eyes. Chu Qingqing even gave him a mocking smile. Just some petty trick. Universal righteous sex loss is certain. Zhao Dezhu is such a revolting coward. Why do you say that, Qingqing? Isn't he valiant? Shui Ruohua looked at her. Qingqing shook her head. You hardly see it used among cultivators. But among common people, betraying each other is commonplace. He speaks of justice, just to arouse other people to fight, while he is the only one who doesn't follow his own preaching. What does this say about him, I wonder? The girls scowled in understanding. Bam! Another loud explosion and hundreds of chains shot for the Scarlet Dragon. Universal righteous sex disciples were now fully invested in this fight, filled with battle spirit. However, a tail swipe blew them all away. What followed was blood from everyone's mouths. Don't falter, people. With me, Zhao Dezhu here, victory is in our grasp. Zhao Dezhu once again shouted, stirring them up into gritting their teeth and fighting again. No one here doubted how their valiant senior brother could be filled with such valor, even after he was struck back by the Scarlet Dragon. People did not care that much, though. They were willing to lay down their lives to uphold their righteous justice, as they shot hundreds of chains once more. The Scarlet Dragon did not move this time, letting the chains coil around it. Seeing a glimmer of hope, they raised their heads. Maybe just a little more push, and they could win this. However, they then noticed Zhuofan's mocking eyes. Two snapping sounds echoed. They all stood dumbstruck, turning around to see Zhao Dezhu breaking his connections with his fellow disciples, and running away as he apologized. Forgive me, brothers, your senior brother has ungrasped victory this time. Chapter 693 Forsaken. Chapter 693 Forsaken. Proofreader, Papatonks. As senior brother, how can you? All the Universal Righteous Sect disciples stood in disbelief, unable to come to terms with the fact their glorious head senior brother was forsaking them. Some were even crying. Their head senior brother, who always shouted that he would grasp victory, had cast them aside. Zhuofan felt the barrier weakening by a significant degree as he mocked. You still don't get it? Your senior brother had been spurring you on just to keep the barrier up while he got away with his life. If the barrier collapsed, then all would die. This, however, it's much better. 9 dies so one can flee. Your deaths now have some worth, ha ha ha. Everyone looked in the direction. Zhao Dezhu went with questioning gazes. Unable to face them, Zhao Dezhu lowered his head as he spoke. A double dragon gathering needs to have a survivor to return and guide the next generation of disciples to fight in the double dragon gathering. This is for the greater good, you. Excuses, Zhao Dezhu. You're just a spineless hypocrite that has clearly forsaken us. One disciple cut him off as he cursed. He didn't get to finish, as Zhuofan had the almighty Scarlet Dragon King shake and remove all those chains on it. At the same time, its huge bulk slammed into the barrier, breaking it down. Its vast body soared through the skies and unleashed its rage. The Universal Righteous Sect's 9 disciples spat one last mouthful of blood and lost all signs of life. They crumbled to the ground, their souls gone. All that remained was the anger and remorse in their eyes. Whether by coincidence or not, Zhuofan's attack allowed this heavy regret to be forever engraved in their eyes. When the huge dragon rushed out, the 9 disciples were flung by its force, and it so happened they fell all around Zhao Dezhu. Their eyes stared at him. A mere glance left him struck with fear as he stumbled back. He hurriedly looked away, unable to bear the shame. The spectators all looked at him with scorn. As a cultivator, it is shameful enough not to face adversities as you meet them, but you just treated the brothers you spend so much time with as scapegoats to save your pathetic life. This is a question of character. You even go as far as spewing excuses as you flee, shirking all responsibility. If you use them as scapegoats, the least you can do is be honest about it. That way it'll make you look cunning, at the very least, become a demonic cultivator. But by mincing words, you only earned everyone's scorn. You're not qualified to even be a man. Wu Qingqiu sighed in disappointment, finally understanding what Yan Mo was saying. Zhao Dezhu was even worse than he had thought. Shui Ruohua and the girl's eyes lit up. Then they sent a look of admiration to Chu Qingqing. She, who had come from a common clan among the common people, could easily spot a hypocrite. While they trained for years in their sect, they lacked life experiences. They only knew of good versus evil while oblivious to the complexity of a person's character. It was hard to believe Zhao Dezhu, the great leader of the Universal Righteous Sect's team, would stoop so low. It's best to avoid him. He's not worth our time. Shui Ruohua turned to Xian Xiaoyu, wanting to say something. Senior sister, why are you looking at me? Xian Xiaoyu was sulking since Zhuo Fan won another fight. Then he noticed Shui Ruohua's strange gaze and was startled. Shui Ruohua shook her head after a pause. Nothing, little brother. A gentleman must always improve himself, stand upright, and have dignity. Take this as a warning. Oh. Xian Xiaoyu waved her off. His eyes took a more hateful tint for some odd reason. Easing a breath, Shui Ruohua turned around with worry. She felt the little brother she saw growing up was straying further and further from the righteous path. Whoosh! With the huge dragon looming around, Zhao Dezhu's figure flashed before Zhao Dezhu. Zhao Dezhu waved his hands about frantic. W8! I give. You can't attack me. I have no way to make the array again. Since I surrender, you have no reason to attack me. Elder, hurry and take me out. Universal Righteous Sect admits defeat. Zhao Dezhu blabbed in a hurry, having already forgotten he just forsook his fellow brothers, and imploring the judge to save him. The judge's eyes shone with disdain, and he shook his head. He glanced over at the gatekeepers. The two caught it, and began to open the door. A white light fell on the small valley, carrying the judge's voice. In Demon Scheming Sect versus Universal Righteous Sect, Demon Scheming Sect is the winner. Neither side may continue fighting. The arena was drowned in a sea of cheers. Even the fiends were wild with joy. While their aim was the superior three sects, the fact they actually achieved it was beyond glorious. The disciples of the Sword God sect smiled as well. The Demon Scheming Sect had come all the way from a lower three sect, and became one of the best in the lands. It was a monumental occasion. Although Zhuo Fan had prevented the Sword God sect from reaching the superior three sects, to witness the constant for thousands of years finally change, they were gratified. This was proof the Western lands sects could grow. This double dragon gathering, the Demon Scheming Sect was the underdog, and the next time, it would be Sword God sect's turn. They had a firm belief in their hearts. Their convictions were sharp like a sword. The Sword God sect's disciples looked at each other and burst out laughing, as if this grand achievement was theirs. Even though the judge gave his verdict, Zhuo Fan never stopped walking closer and closer toward Zhao Dezhu with a creepy smile. The grand dragon around him bared its fangs and roared. Hey, it's over, Zhuo Fan. What are you doing? Zhao Dezhu was sweating buckets as Zhuo Fan approached. He was horrified by what Zhuo Fan might do, that he would ignore Double Dragon Manor's rules and kill him. The crazed demonic cultivators did not follow logic or rules. Who knew what was really on their minds, what next outrageous thing they'd do? Zhao Dezhu smiled and shook his head. He made a sign, and the scarlet dragon returned to his body. Ha, Zhao Dezhu, no need to fret. I'm a law-abiding man. Since the judge said it, I won't touch you. Moreover, I wouldn't have done anything to you even if he didn't say anything. What? Zhao Dezhu was stumped. Why would this crazed killer just let me go without rhyme or reason? Was he touched by my justice too? As if. This vile spawn is unlike those little demons. How could he get scared by my valor? It's a ploy. It has to be. Zhou Fan grinned, having seen through him, and patted his shoulder. You're right. I didn't kill you for a selfish reason of mine. Think about it. It's not the strong adversary one should fear, but a moronic teammate. If all demonic cultivators were like Wen Tao and Wu Qingqiu, such outstanding people, then the future of demonic cultivators would be bleak. But if there were more demagogues like you, Zhao Dezhu, who resort to betrayal during a crucial time, screwing over your team, then the demonic cultivators would rule the world in a few years. One might go as far as to say you're my lucky star. I can't wait to spoil you, so why kill you? Just do you when you get back. Betray as many righteous cultivators as you can. We demonic cultivators, shall forever shower you with the same respect as our ancestors, ha ha ha. Zhou Fan patted his shoulder, and the other demon-scheming sect disciples laughed. Even the audience joined them. Zhou Fan might have said some cruel words, but they were all true. If there were just a few more hypocrites of Zhao Dezhu's caliber in the righteous faction, its future would look quite shaky. Zhou Fan, I admit that you have given me a heavy blow, but what you've done now, it's a stroke of genius. Letting this punk mess up the universal righteous sect back home will end up messing up all righteous sections. I could practically see the future of demonic cultivators, shining like the bright stars above, ha ha ha. Yin Mo laughed at the sky. Wu Qingqiu next to him shook his head. Not just Zhao Dezhu, but even the entire universal righteous sect would become Western Land's laughingstock. And they did it with their own two hands. Wu Qingqiu smiled, seeing everyone around him having the time of their lives. The only one who wasn't that pleased by the teasing was Zhao Dezhu. His face twitched, and he glared at Zhou Fan as he ridiculed him. He passed through the curtain of light and returned to the arena. Next was Demon Scheming Sect versus Hellion Flame. But because Hellion Flame had suffered great damage in their fight with Ultimate Clarity Sect, the fight didn't last long against Zhou Fan, even with Yin Mo giving his all. At long last, Demon Scheming Sect was facing the strongest of the 9 sects, the Ultimate Clarity Sect. Zhou Fan was now standing across from his strongest opponent, a fellow sacred beast inheritor, Yi Lin, the decimating dragon ancestor's disciple. Chapter 694, Fighting Yi Lin. Chapter 694, Fighting Yi Lin. Proofreader Papatonks. Roar. The crowd was beyond excited now that the time had finally come to see these two teams face off and fight for the crown. On one side was the strongest sect in Western Lands, under Double Dragon Manor, and above many, the Ultimate Clarity Sect. For thousands of years, their position had been firm, with no one able to challenge them. On the other side was the greatest underdog the history of Double Dragon Gathering had ever seen, hailing from the lower 3 sects and killing their way up. Even though everyone knew it was due to one man alone, that wasn't enough to wipe out the excitement the crowd had felt throughout its journey in this competition. As this underdog pulled down one sect after another, the people's hearts were in their throats, thinking the next one would be the one to cast them down. Some even hoped that a sect could halt this rampaging dark horse in its tracks, while at the same time wishing to see it reaching higher and higher, doing something that had never been done in ages. This contradiction further increased their expectations for what Demon Scheming Sect was about to offer in this fight, one between the current and prospective kings. Would Ultimate Clarity Sect rule unfazed for ages more, or would the new reign of the Demon Scheming Sect over the 9 sects be established? It wasn't just the audience. Even the 9 sects teams were tense. Their nerves stretched taut, as were their muscles. How many years has it been since we last saw such an exciting match? Exalted Bai Mei let out a refreshed smile. Exalted He Ran nodded. The sects haven't shifted their seats in thousands of years, letting the Western Lands enjoy peace. But sooner or later, someone will come and change all that. This is for the best. The shift in order will drive the sects into teaching their disciples harder, ha ha ha. Exalted Bai Mei nodded, the eyes of both of them settling on Yi Lin and Zhou Fan. They knew the outcome of this fight rested entirely on their shoulders. As for the rest except Wu Qingqiu, all were useless no matter how hard it was to accept. As long as anyone in the audience wasn't completely blind, they would also look at the two in excitement. This fight wasn't just to settle who was the top superior 3 sect, but also who was the best disciple in the Western Lands, the future best cultivator in the Western Lands. The two teams are here. Now I know what your intentions are. I still need to ask you. Demon Scheming Sect, do you want to challenge the head of the 9 sects, Ultimate Clarity Sect? The judge was fired up as well. He hardly used the head of the 9 sects title in his announcements. This clearly showed he wanted to spur them on. Not even he could stay calm in front of this excitement. The audience started chanting, "Fight, fight, fight. As you all wish, we shall fight." Zhou Fan raised his fist shouting. The cheers reached the heavens once more. The judge nodded and smiled. Open the dimension. The two gatekeepers once again opened the door to the secret valley. Wu Qingqiu smiled at Zhuo Fan's team, taking the lead to go through first. Zhuo Fan's eyelid twitched, touching his ring. He then led his team through. He didn't forget that Dan Qingshun was still hiding in his ring. He had to think of a way to let this old coot slip out with none the wiser. As for the right timing, he would have to wait it out. Zhuo Fan's mission weighed heavily on his shoulders. He not only was going into a fight to the death with Yi Lin, but now he had Dan Qingshun to worry about. Any of these two tasks could be done alone if he put his all into it. But since he had to do them at the same time, that required some careful planning. At the very least, it would require some skill if he wanted to get the ring back after throwing it without raising any eyebrows. He did have a plan in mind, but it was all up to Yi Lin and his role in this act. Easing a breath, Zhuo Fan focused as he stepped through the white curtain. He was back in the small valley. This was his 6th time here, and he was quite familiar with it. He knew where the monitoring arrays were placed and where their blind spots were. His teammates followed next, and the two sects faced each other. Ha ha ha. Brother Zhuo is so strong that I have been eagerly waiting for us to fight. Ashamed that this is not my chance. My younger brother insists on letting him have you. I am not one to take this joy from him, and would have to settle for the next time. Smiling, Wu Qingqiu backed away, cupping his hands at Zhuo Fan and his team. He went before Yi Lin and said, "This might be a team battle, but we also understand the situation of their sect. They have only one person able to bear this fight, so we will also have just one person settle it. As we watch from the sidelines, I will let junior brother represent us on the field." Yi Lin walked forward bearing a wide smile. Qi Changlong and the others felt down. Wu Qingqiu was right, without a doubt, but he was being modest about it. Though the way it was registered, it felt more like contempt. As if they only managed to get so far on the back of one person. They were utterly useless. We know that's true, but could you at least not say it? It hurts our feelings. Zhuo Fan noticed their annoyance, and slowly moved forward as he stared at Ultimate Clarity Sect's team. Brother Wu is right. Our two sects fight has to be one-on-one. But once the battle starts, even if your disciples want to help, they are not to interfere. What do you say? Right, that's how it should be, ha ha ha. Qi Changlong, Kuei Lang, and the others laughed. Zhuo Fan said in reply to his statement, "You dare call us useless? Once these freaks fight, since you won't be joining either, you're just as useless. Besides sounding nice, it's just conforming to our intent of having a one-on-one fight. Actually, none of you have what it takes to join the fight. Even if you do, you'll be nothing more than cannon fodder. So what's so funny?" Holding his forehead, Wu Qingqiu smiled and shook his head. He did not deny it. Since his words were heard by all, he still had to keep his earlier words. However, Ultimate Clarity Sect's disciples grew angry at being disregarded by a lower 3 sect. The audience saw the two sects were ready to fight, and throwing verbal attacks. They grew even more excited. The fight is bound to be intense. Junior brother, aren't you going to say something? Say what you feel. Wu Qingqiu saw his junior brothers were fuming and asked Yi Lin. Yi Lin eyed him, and scratched his head before nodding. He turned to Zhuo Fan and admitted, "You're right. These people besides senior brother Wu can be ignored. This fight is between you and me." Wu Qingqiu's face twitched, and he held his forehead. His junior brother had always been a lone wolf. He doesn't know anything about respect for his fellow man. The others cursed. For him, though, it didn't matter if the sect hated him. The Ultimate Clarity Sect's disciples looked on with dark glares and shook their heads. This little junior brother is a professional at making fun of others. They were clueless that Yi Lin took pride in his status as a sacred beast inheritor. So how could he give a damn about some common folks? In his eyes, even Wu Qingqiu wasn't worth it. He only treated him better since the senior brother had looked after him all these years. Only Zhuo Fan was like him, a grand sacred beast inheritor. All of you stand back. I don't care if any of you die from our fight's aftershocks. Yi Lin flicked his hand with a stern look. The others knew his temper, and shook their heads as they cleared the area. Taking his time walking forward, Zhuofan looked around this place. This is a good spot. He signaled Qi Changlong and the others to leave. Stand a mile behind me, lest you want to be squashed. They all started, but they left either way. Why is it that he insists on standing behind him? Zhuofan had just found a blind spot in a monitoring array. With the disciples in this area, it would be easier for him to get Danqing Shen out of his ring. So even while they were clueless, they trusted Steward Zhua, doing what he said. Everything was in place. All that was left was to fight. Zhuofan focused his eyes and shot forward, his right hand unleashing a terrible red glow. Yilin grinned and faced him head-on with a golden flaming glow. He reached Zhuofan even faster than the other, the golden flaming fist punching forward. Chapter 695 Melee. Chapter 695 Melee. Proofreader, Papatonks. Eyes squinting, Zhuofan was startled. Although he knew that Yilin was fast, he didn't expect him to be that fast. He was now seeing just how fast he was with his own eyes. It felt like he was in front of him in a blink, almost faster than he could react. With little choice against the sudden punch, Zhuofan had to withdraw his earlier attack, turning it into a block. Even so, he had lost momentum. Bam! The explosion resulted on impact unleashed a ray of violent golden flames, while Zhuofan was sent flying. The scorching heat was enough to feel pain even from his Qilin arm. Zhuofan's face looked grave. The fiends were more shocked than ever. How can this be? Steward Zhua actually lost in terms of raw power? Zhuofan was just as shocked as they were. He used to think that when Yilin refined decimating golden flame of the decimating dragon ancestor, his power was destructive in nature, not physical. So as long as he avoided clashing with it, even if he traded fists with his mighty Qilin arm, he should be able to get the upper hand against him. However, Yilin's body was so tough it didn't lose out against the Qilin arm at all. Are you telling me he's not human but a damn dragon? But Zhuofan shook that thought away. A real dragon taught by the Dragon Emperor had to be a little more freakish like young Sanzi. So while he was strong, it was nowhere near young Sanzi's terrifying level. Did he refine his body as well? Frowning, Zhuofan looked ahead just in time to see Yilin's evil look. That fist unleashed golden flames that burned everything it touched. Golden scales appeared on the fist, emitting sharp glaring lights. Zhuofan now understood. Those were dragon scales. This guy is anything but a plain human. A half-dragon, half-human at the least. But this robbed Zhuofan of any chance of winning in melee. He only had the arm of a Qilin. Everything else was pure human. Who knew how many changes his opponent had? If his entire body was turned draconic, that would be bad. He had no hope at all in close quarters. Frowning, Zhuofan's face was wrought with worry. Chu Qingqing stared at the screen just as worried. She had never seen Zhuofan show such a serious face in a fight. While he faced Huangpu Qingtian, and was once surrounded by the expert of the 7 houses, he always found a way out, even if at a disadvantage. He not once looked as lost as he was now. Yilin was just too strong, as anyone could see. He might even be stronger than him. But that was not the reason for his worry. He was faced with the same situation before. So why was he showing such a weakened look, like he was about to lose? Chu Qingqing's fist tightened, so nervous her hands were sweating. The two only clashed once, but it was clear to anyone how matters stood between them. Zhuofan was on the defensive. This single strike had almost already decided how this fight would end. Whoosh! Yilin snickered and capitalized on his advantage. He again shot for Zhuofan, fist forward, as he changed into a gold light. Zhuofan's right eye flashed in a golden halo, and he was gone, reappearing behind his opponent and striking his back. This fist carried all his power, the Qilin arm exploding with red light. And this was something Yilin's golden fist could not block. However, just as Zhuofan was about to hit, Yilin's other hand was encased in golden flames as he flicked it behind, meeting the Qilin arm. A rumble like no other echoed, one born from the striking of 2 arms unseen in the mortal domain. It unleashed frightening spatial waves and searing golden flames everywhere around them. It left nothing but destruction in its wake. 1,000 meters around them was leveled in a blink, removing from existence even the dust. All matter trapped in this area had been wiped out of existence. SSS. Everyone gasped in fright at such a sight, especially Ultimate Clarity Sect and Demon Scheming Sect's teams. They were so scared that they were sweating buckets. Wu Qingqiu's eyes shook as he had a bitter smile. As the audience enjoyed the show, the experts noticed something more. The average man wouldn't care much about what he saw, only finding it strange at best. It was common for the ground to be leveled when two fought. Even Radiant stage experts could do it. There was nothing to it. However, the crux was this was not just simply leveling the playing field, but clearing it out, to the extent that not a single particle of dust remained. This showed the two's raw power, and how focused it all was. Not even experts above the ethereal stage could unleash such pure yuan qi that it could erase matter from existence. Yet these two did it through Zhuofan's power and Yi Lin's golden flame. This was the purest power the 5 great sacred beasts had refined from the primal chaos. Exalted double dragons were overwhelmed. How the hell did these two freaks train to be so abominable? With a groan, the two separated from their second clash, evenly matched. Zhuofan's hand was somewhat singed, and he was gasping 100 meters away from the burning heat he felt on it. Yi Lin's hand was shaking non-stop, and even looked inflamed. Soaring Qilin was famed for its great strength among the 5 great sacred beasts. Even with the dragon scales protecting him, Yi Lin still suffered damage. However, he wasn't angry but excited. With a manic grin plastered on his face, he muttered to himself, "That's how a sacred beast inheritor should be." Soaring Qilin's punch is indeed fearsome. Hehehe. The dragon soul used Soaring Qilin's power, and so did that punch. I already know who your master is. Now I don't have to hold back. Soaring Qilin is the top of the 5 great sacred beasts when it comes to raw power. But you're just a radiant stage cultivator, not in the ethereal stage. For anyone else, using the Qilin arm is enough. But against our kind, this is nowhere near enough to win. Yi Lin turned into another golden light as he shot for Zhuofan again. His hands, encased in golden flames, were seeping with bloodthirst. It caused Zhuofan to gasp from way over there. The first 2 clashes were a warm-up. Now the punk is coming at me for real. Zhuofan's eyes squinted, and his right eye shone golden as he used Divine Eye of the Void's first stage shift. He knew all too well that with Yi Lin's speed, only with shift would he be able to get the upper hand. Whoosh! A golden and a red trail crossed each other in unending explosions as they entered a frenzied melee. When the audience saw them clash in one spot, they popped into another, bouncing all over the place. They could not catch a glimpse of each of their figures even through the screen. If they were at the scene, they would surely die without knowing how it happened. The 9 sect's disciples were shocked to the core. Was this the 2 freaks' real power? Holy hell, they were worlds apart from them. They couldn't even take them on in a fistfight. It seemed like Zhuofan had never fought them in earnest, or they wouldn't even last 5 hits. And that begged the question in Wen Tao's mind. Since Zhuofan is so tough, how did I get to wound him? This is too strange. The Demon Scheming Sect and Ultimate Clarity Sect's team were even more scared. They could all feel the incredible winds and fierce waves striking their skin. While they couldn't see the two, they were all so scared that they were ashen. In this fight, the two had reached an unknown height in terms of power and speed. The other disciples all realized one unmistakable truth. The minute they set foot anywhere near the pair, they would be ripped to pieces smaller than the eye could see. Ultimate Clarity Sect's disciples finally understood why this team battle became a single match, and why they shouldn't interfere. Yi Lin had never seen them as real teammates, just as Zhuofan didn't recognize them as real opponents. If they managed to get Yi Lin to use half his power, that was already commendable. But now, the two were evenly matched, using all they had and more. Such a ferocious power let everyone know what it meant to be a world apart. All they ever amounted to in front of their battle was to be spectators. Any attempt to butt in would be met with swift death. Chapter 696, Fated Battle. Chapter 696, Fated Battle. Proofreader Papatonks. Bang! Ear-splitting explosions ripped the skies as Zhuofan and Yi Lin's figures flashed all over the place. They just clashed east, then they were west in the next moment. Everyone was engrossed in the show they two were putting on, swishing their heads left and right, up and down to catch a glimpse. But even that proved impossible. Just how is their fight going? Only a very limited number of experts could see every move they made. Sure enough, Yi Lin still has the upper hand. Exalted He Ran sighed. In this melee, Zhuofan is simply making himself a target for Yi Lin. While everyone knows his body is tough, Yi Lin's is not even a bit lacking. Exalted by Mei nodded. Zhuofan's body cultivation is just too specialized, toughening only one arm. It was enough to sweep the floor with everyone else, but Yi Lin's training has been full-bodied. Maybe this mystical arm was trained when he felt extra lonely. Exalted He Ran raised an eyebrow. We've all been young once, so it's understandable, ha ha ha. Proofreader's note. Imagine if it was that easy, millions of guys with Qilin. Bai Mei teased. You're so despicable. You're even joking about this? Exalted Bai Mei turned a hard face towards the fight. However, focusing all his training into that one arm had given him a miraculous power in it. The drawback of doing so is now revealed. He's already having a hard time against Yi Lin's mad assault. Exalted He Ran returned his focus to the screen and nodded heavily. Glossing over Yi Lin's arms wrapped in golden fire. He could even get his two legs to burn golden too. He could attack any way he wanted from any direction, while Zhuofan only had a single Qilin arm to fight this onslaught. No wonder he was at a disadvantage. Other than that strong arm, Zhuofan was all human. The slightest touch with any of the enemy's strikes would reduce his body to nothing. Zhuofan frowned while his heart sank lower and lower. This was what he had feared. One who had no weaknesses against one who had just one arm would sooner or later lead to the latter's defeat. This situation brought out the fight he had with Nine Dragons' diamond body. Wang Putingyuan's state left him helpless. Luckily, young Sanzi lent a hand in finishing the old guy off. Wait a sec. The returning dragon's roar made the old guy so tough. I wonder if this guy has a similar trump card hidden away. If not, Zhuofan's eyes glinted in the constant clashes, as if he had found a way out. He punched one last time to get the other to fall back. Then he got some distance by flying into the sky. It looked just like fleeing. Zhuofan, you're not getting anywhere. Yi Lin laughed and turned into a golden ray as he shot after him, his eyes flashing with bloodlust. Just like how a savage beast found another and had to tear it to pieces. Just as he was about to catch up, Zhuofan slowed down, hovering in the air. His eyes flashed with an eerie glow, and his right arm glowed a thick red as it punched. Yi Lin was caught off guard, but against a punch, he had nothing to fear. His two arms were coated in golden flames, and dragon scales sprouted all over them as he crossed them to take the punch. Something happened that floored him in more ways than one. The arm expanded and expanded. It was like a massive pillar sent from the heavens above, smashing right into him. Tangible projection soaring Qilin leg. I'll just stomp ya. Zhuofan roared in his mind, and the Qilin leg's massive power slammed into Yi Lin. Bam! The Qilin leg hit Yi Lin's arms with a resounding boom. Not even he could withstand such might. The bones in his arms were fractured, and his face went red, forced by the immense pillar to be stomped into the ground. Rumble! A loud rumbling echoed in everyone's ears, dust clouding the entire area. Under this single strike, that little valley sported 100-meter deep hole. Ultimate Clarity Sect and Demon Scheming Sect's disciples felt the whole world shaking with them, their faces overcome with shock. When the dust finally scattered, the people gazed upon the magnificent Qilin leg with stupefaction. Holy mackerel! What is that thing? Is it human? Some were so overwhelmed they just stared into space. Even the exalted were having a hard time comprehending this sight. We've been on this earth for so many years, yet this is a first for us too. Just what the hell did the kid do to train that right arm? The exalted found it hard to believe their eyes. Only Wuxia was quick to react. "Junior brother, are you all right?" No reply. The Qilin leg had nothing living under its feet. He couldn't sense anything. Wuxia frowned, filled with worry. Was his incredible junior brother gone just like that? Stomped into hereafter by an even freakier freak? This can't be. He refused to believe it. From what he knew about Yilin, he would not go down that easily. Zhua Fan agreed. Even if there was no sign of Yilin being alive underneath all that red. So he just kept adding pressure to the Qilin leg to cut off any means of escape. However, even as the crowd had yet to overcome their shock, an explosion came from under the Qilin leg. Golden flames flicked around it. Zhua Fan felt his leg hurt, a searing heat that made him sweat buckets. However, he clenched his teeth and added more power in his leg to stop that punk from getting out. Not that it helped anyway. Zhua Fan was giving all he had, yet the leg was rising. Like a volcanic eruption, a burst of fire came from beneath it. Ah! A shout of exertion came from within that inferno as the flames only grew in size, and the leg was pushed back. Soon, a man in golden flames appeared, using his arms to push the leg higher. Golden flames flitted all over his body, now covered in sharp dragon scales. That was no human, no matter how one looked at him, but a freak covered in scales. He was only missing a tail and horns, and he'd be a dragonborn. The audience gasped in shock. These freaks are freaks in bodies as well. No wonder the previous disciples were being finished off in seconds. These guys aren't humans. Zhua Fan could feel the immense power lifting his Qilin leg, and his face sank. It was also very pale. I just knew the guy has a full transformation unlike me. Maybe the Qilin leg comes from a sacred beast, and can hold him back a bit, but it stands no chance against his full body tempering. I lost in melee. Zhua Fan frowned and sighed, admitting that he stood no chance. Ah! With another shout, Yilin used all he had as he pushed the Qilin leg off him. Zhua Fan staggered in the air. What shocked him more was that Yilin was now in his face in the blink of an eye. Zhua Fan, you lost in close quarters even with that Qilin arm. You have no chance. Yilin came at Zhua Fan like a savage dragon while cackling. Qilin has the greatest power among the 5 great sacred beasts. Today I surpassed the Qilin, and you'll become my stepping stone to reach the Tao, ha ha ha. Zhua Fan shuddered and finally understood the meaning of this fated battle. At the end of this battle, one would go on higher and higher, to the peak of Tao, while the other would be cast in his shadow of defeat, finding it hard to even move on. In other words, the path forward would only get even harder for the loser. This battle he had to win. Chapter 697, Soul Battle. Chapter 697, Soul Battle. Proofreader Papatonks. Cultivating was going against the natural order, fighting adversity. As long as one had a staunch belief, he would be able to walk his own path. That did not apply to Beast Thought. There could be only one Beast King. When 2 brutal beasts met, they had to fight for a winner. The winner was king, and the loser was banished. The 5 great sacred beasts had ruled the lands together, not because of their friendly ties or rank. It was because each excelled in something that was seen with pride, and made them feel like kings. Thus no one could compare with another. However, if 2 beasts fought for hegemony, the loser would never be able to raise their head, forever in the other's shadow. This was savagery, and the winner was king. Humanity had followed this principle as well. But humans had some sayings: change was constant, and revenge was a dish best served cold. That was why, to the average onlooker, the fight between him and Yilin didn't have much significance. The loser would live as well, and could win the next time a few years later. As long as one had a steel heart, he would get back on his feet. This, however, did not apply to them. They were sacred beast inheritors. The nature of beasts flowed through them. Their fight was actually a representation of decimating dragon ancestor versus soaring Qilin. If one side lost, it would never again be able to reach the other. This was the way of the beast. But they were humans as well. Though not quite crucial, the beast's way more or less affected their beliefs. That was what the fated battle meant. The winner would have his horizon broadened by standing on the other's shoulders, and would be much closer to Tao. The loser would be like a beast, being left with a shadow in his heart, shaking at the mere sight of the other, and would find his path incredibly hard to tread. Zhuo Fan never thought much of it till now, only his heart pounding and telling him that he should fight. Now though, after hearing Yi Lin, he understood. In this battle, they were betting their future. This only made it even more crucial he should not lose. He wasn't fighting for Soaring Qilin's honor, only for his path, for no one to stand in his way. Zhuo Fan's previous desolate heart was now rekindled with a burning fire. Seeing Yi Lin coming, his eyes squinted, and he swept the Qilin leg as he roared. If you think you're just going to stand on my shoulders, you have another thing coming. This fight will be my win. Humph, you didn't receive Soaring Qilin's inheritance, did you? Why else would you be using a sacred beast's ability in such a crude way? You'll never get to beat me by using such half-ass methods. Squinting, Yi Lin saw through him and faced the incoming Qilin leg. Golden dragon tail, spatial rend. Roar. With the roar echoing across the skies, Yi Lin swept his leg, and the image of a golden dragon tail took shape as it whipped at the incoming leg. The golden flames appeared on it again, and came down on the Qilin leg like a sickle. Bam! The heavy collision revealed the unexpected to the crowd. The unbeatable Qilin leg was flung aside by the tail swipe. A dark gash was left on the red leg, and fresh blood seeped out. Whoosh! With one last red flash, Zhuo Fan's right hand was back to normal. In this clash he was truly outmatched. Yi Lin's swipe had pushed him back. This had never happened before in Zhuo Fan's life. The sacred beast Qilin leg had lost in strength. It was the only reason why it would revert to its original form. Startled, Zhuo Fan was flung backward, and found it hard to believe what he saw. Yi Lin is truly strong. He's just the decimating dragon ancestor's inheritor, so how can his strength? Is this the difference between a true inheritance and a meshed-up one? Frowning, Zhuo Fan's face was heavy. Then he recalled the matter of Danqing Shun. Looking around, he found he was flying right for demon scheming sect's disciples. This was a good chance. So he flicked his hand and let the thunder ring fly off his ring, looking as if Yi Lin's strike shook it off. The tiny ring glittered brightly as it fell behind the demon scheming sect's disciples, where the monitoring arrays were blind. The instant the ring touched the ground, a flash of light came out of it that was hidden by the disciples. Without the monitoring arrays, no one was the wiser when something came out. Even the exalted double dragons were entirely focused on Zhuo Fan, and not on the ring. Heavens, it even shook his ring off. Brother Zhuo has lost this melee. Wen Tao sighed and shook his head. Xie Tianshang felt somewhat disappointed. Next will be a battle of souls. Soul battle? Wen Tao sighed and said. Zhuo Fan is a freak, but Yi Lin is freakier. Zhuo Fan is only in the radiant stage, while Yi Lin is in the ethereal stage. Does he have any chance at all? Xie Tianshang was startled for a long time. Wen Tao's eyes flashed, and he sighed. Ever since the fight started, Brother Zhuo rested his hopes on winning in melee. If he lost in close combat, that means it's only a matter of time before it ended. Xie Tianshang shook, looking at Zhuo Fan as he sighed. It wasn't just Sword God Sect. Hellion Flame and Demon Soul Sect were reaching the same conclusion. Chu Qingqing couldn't sit still and stood up, staring intently at Zhuo Fan. Her eyes scrunched up in worry. When he showed that look, was it because he put all his confidence in melee? But when he discovered that the other has a much stronger body, he no longer had any hope of winning. Chu Qingqing's eyes were filled with tears. He went all out knowing he had to do it, even knowing it didn't work. Sister Qingqing, doesn't he have the strongest soul, Heaven Dragon Soul? He might still win. Danner tried cheering her up. Chu Qingqing shook her head. If he could win with his soul, he would have done it from the start. Why drag it out? He must know the other's soul is far better than his. So he went for a close-quarter battle. But he got completely crushed, hee. Xian Xiaoyu spoke with incredible joy. The girls glared at him, and Chu Qingqing ignored him. She only had eyes for Zhuo Fan. You, who never faltered once, what are you going to do now? Chu Qingqing was asking him and herself, trying to think of a way to help Zhuo Fan. That deep emotion only made Xian Xiaoyu's hatred burn hotter. The exalted double dragons stared intently at the fight, then shook their heads. It seems Zhuo Fan must know something about Yi Lin's soul that we don't. That's why he didn't go for a soul battle. Otherwise, just when he lost in melee, switching for a soul attack would have caught the adversary off guard. Exalted Heiran spoke. Exalted by May nodded. Now that melee is a dead end, and he's not going for a soul battle, the outcome is clear. There's no point in fighting now. Zhuo Fan has lost. All that's left is for him to admit it, or fight to his last drop of energy. Exalted Heiran's eyes glinted. Though I hope he'll fight till the very end. In the corner of the valley, Dan Qingshun slipped out of the ring, and did not rush for the sacred weapon. He closely observed the fight, feeling his chin with his rough hand. Boy, the melee was but a test. Have you found all you need for the soul battle? I want to see if your meshed-up dragon soul can turn it around. I hope you won't let me down. Whoosh! Stopping himself from flying backward, he also spat blood. After wiping his mouth, his eyes took on a hard gaze. Zhuo Fan, your greatest asset strength has been trumped. Qilin's disciple had just lost to the decimating dragon ancestor's disciple. Admit your defeat. I'll take you under my wing as my right hand. With me, your path won't be so affected. We will both make our way to the sacred domain. Yi Lin flashed in front of him with a smile. After all, on this wide green earth, there's only us who are half human, half beast. Zhuo Fan snickered. The winner lords over the loser. For the loser to swear allegiance to the winner is the best path, so that the loser can attain Dao by following the winner. Otherwise, his path would be cut from the pain in his heart. It's good you realize it. Who had it, so we become sacred beast inheritors. To gain their power and inherit their path. So admit defeat. It's for your own good. Ha ha ha, sorry, I've gotten used to always calling the shots. Being the little guy doesn't suit me. Zhuo Fan sneered, his eyes flashed, and he roared. You won in close quarters, but I'll win in soul. The final victory will be mine. Chapter 698. Decimating Golden Heaven Dragon King. Chapter 698. Decimating Golden Heaven Dragon King. Proofreader, Papatonks. Soul battle. Raising an eyebrow, Yi Lin heard the biggest joke in his life as he cracked up. You've already compared your Heaven Dragon soul with mine, haven't you? Yet you still want to fight the Heaven Dragon soul of a dragon ancestor's disciple? Ha ha ha, how cocky can you get? If you still aren't clear on the 5 great sacred beasts' unique powers, I can enlighten you. Qilin has the best raw power, but is the worst when it comes to anything else. The fact that you lost in melee means you lost it all. There's no hope for you to turn it around. So listen to my advice and give up. Holding his head high, Yi Lin shouted with resolution. Zhuo Fan knew it very clearly as well. But he was even more sure that his inheritance did not limit itself to Qilin. It was a jumbled-up array of skills from many great experts. While not a master in either of them, victory lay in their amount. Now that he fused them all, he could mold them any way he wanted. Maybe one such variation was the answer to this battle. Just like how Dan Qingshun put it, his second-rate dragon soul might win against the orthodox one. While having no hope of winning, Zhuo Fan was far from losing also. He would have to see where this action took him, be it defeat or victory. Therefore, Zhuo Fan no longer wasted words. Sacred beasts are sacred beasts. We are humans. You're too naive if you think you can compare their fights with ours. Wraith-style second move, Ghostly Dragon Claw. Roar! With the roar, Zhuo Fan's Qilin arm flashed red, and a claw ripped through the air as it grabbed for Yi Lin. Humph, pig-headed. Since one is a sacred beast inheritor, a master's power determines a disciple's power. The master's skill is the disciple's skill. No one in this world can surpass the 5 great sacred beasts. Your only hope of winning is by using the inherited Qilin's power. But now you no longer have that chance. Yi Lin's eyes flashed coldly. He jumped straight ahead as he coated his dragon claw in golden flames. 9 revolving golden dragon claw, Space Ripper. Bam! A loud blast resulted from the impact, and they entered a deadlock. Then came the 2 dragons' roars. 200 meters tall dragon souls came out of their bodies as they traced the skies. They glowed in a prismatic light, and their tail flicked at the space, almost cracking it before going against each other. Boom! Another explosion came. The two dragons set against each other, the noise covering the little valleys every corner and the mountain range around. Its ripple sent dust flying. As for the disciples of the two sects, the ripple sent them into the air, filling them with shock. They knew Zhuofan had a heaven dragon soul, but not that Yilin had one too. Wu Qingqiu's side was stunned. They had never seen Yilin's soul, and now that they did, they were stumped. Everyone knew that in the thousands of years of Western lands, only the exalted double dragons had such a soul. Since then, no one had gotten such a powerful soul. Now, however, it not only reappeared but it came twice. Everyone looked shocked and more excited than ever. A clash between heaven dragon souls meant a clash between Western land's strongest exalted. Not even they could imagine how it would look. However, today they would witness such a great fight. The delegates, and even the exalted double dragons, were eager to see this exciting fight. How come Yilin also has a heaven dragon soul? Blinking hard, exalted He Ran found it incredulous. Giving a stiff nod, exalted by Mei sighed. This is a truly rare soul. Seeing how a demonic and a righteous cultivator have the same heaven dragon soul is like I'm seeing us in the olden days. They're really like us back in the day. Exalted He Ran recovered from his shock and laughed. It's like these two were sent by Providence. They're like identical molds. Exalted by Mei smiled and nodded. Western lands will have a successor. Chu Qingqing understood why Zhuofan did not take out his soul so soon. Yilin's soul was just like his, if not better. In this soul battle, Zhuofan looked to be at a disadvantage. Looking at the two heaven dragon souls fight, she saw that Yilin's was better, pushing back Zhuofan's. Chu Qingqing was worried again. On the field of battle, the two were in a deadlock. Yilin looked up at the retreating dragon soul belonging to Zhuofan and snickered. I told you. When it comes to dragon souls, you're not my match. It's still in its base form, yet you're still losing ground. If I add the dragon ancestors' teachings, you're finished. Humph, we'll just see about that. Zhuofan squinted and snorted. Variant Almighty Scarlet Dragon King. With a draconic roar, Zhuofan's dragon soul shifted. It exploded in scarlet light, and its scales hardened like rocks, tougher than steel. Its fangs grew and turned savage. Its tail swished and whipped Yilin's dragon soul, causing Yilin to shudder. As his soul shook, he flew back from Zhuofan's punch. He was pushed back from the soul and raw power combined. Demon scheming sect's disciples cheered, and so did the crowd. Only the 9 sects remained silent, staring at the screen with hard faces. Ultimate Clarity sect's disciples were confident. It was like they knew Yilin had no way of losing. The amateurs rave while the experts are aware. Only the 9 sects experts could see that before Zhuofan showed his variant, he was at a disadvantage. They all knew Yilin had yet to show his dragon soul's change. Zhuofan knew this as well, so after shaking him off, he quickly fell back. He wasn't after pressing his chance, but wanted to get the opponent to take out all his cards. The one that showed all his moves was the one who was at a true disadvantage. Grinning, Yilin flew backward, saying in a casual tone, Since you want to see the truest way to train your dragon soul, then feast your eyes. Ha ha ha. Variant Decimating Golden Heaven Dragon King. Widening his eyes, Yilin's eyes had a crazed look as he shouted. Yilin's body and his dragon soul stopped. Golden flames rose from around the dragon soul. They pierced its body, and the prismatic glow soon died against the flames. Now the old dragon had turned into a brilliant golden and burning divine dragon. Its talons grew from within the scorching flames like a pyre, their sharpness glinting in the sun's rays. All could practically see anything turning to ribbons the instant they met those claws. Zhuofan stopped and stared at the golden dragon. He could feel it from there, the blistering heat coming from that huge dragon's flames. He knew the might of this creature, but after pondering, he made up his mind, making Almighty Scarlet Dragon King charge head-on. In the end, knowing both sides' features was what got you victory. He had to figure out everything with the other hand up his sleeves. Seeing through Zhuofan's tactic, Yilin grinned and laughed. You want to see the decimating Golden Heaven Dragon King's power that much? Suit yourself. Not like you have a choice in the matter, ha ha ha. Roar. As if to agree with Yilin, the Golden Dragon roared, surging up as it charged at the Scarlet Dragon. The clash was unlike the previous one, but one of life and death. This was Zhuofan's most dangerous moment of his second life. Bam! The almighty Scarlet Dragon King swished its tail and flung the Golden Dragon back. However, the Golden Dragon used its claw to sink it into the Scarlet Dragon at the same time, right under Zhuofan's incredulous eyes. The searing flames entered the Scarlet Dragon, and it roared in pain. Its heavy bulk shook under pain. Zhuofan's face went red, and his mind was in pain as he spat sizzling blood. Chapter 699 Counterattack. Chapter 699 Counterattack. Proofreader Papatonks. Hahaha Zhuofan, see that? You lost faster comparing our dragon souls than our fists. Give up while you still can. The Golden Dragon was about to be flung away, but because its claw dug deep into the Scarlet Dragon, it stayed put. The Golden Dragon then coiled around the other one and tightened its hold. No matter how it thrashed around, the Scarlet Dragon could not break free. Let's not forget the golden flames cooking it from the inside out. Its only saving grace was the red glow around it shielding it somewhat, or it would have been burned alive. Despite that, the Scarlet Dragon kept wailing in pain due to its sizzling flesh. Zhuofan was shaking like a leaf from having his dragon soul subjected to such a cruel attack. He was pale and sweating buckets. Yilin laughed at Zhuofan's discomfort. What more do you want? Your soul is clearly weaker. Taking it any further would mean the end of your soul, and the end of you. So just give up. To add insult to injury, the Golden Dragon had received Yilin's order, and opened its maw to breathe searing heat on the Scarlet Dragon. Zhuofan was now close to collapsing from how much he was shaking. He clenched his fists and gnashed his teeth, but his eyes held a most staunch gaze. The audience sighed. The soul battle is worse than the melee one. Trapped the moment the fight started. He knew his soul wasn't up to par, so he started with his fists. Yet not even fighting in melee proved helpful, having lost in the end. Now being stubborn and unyielding, he had gone to fight with his soul. But power was everything, and he clearly couldn't win it. Not even going all out worked. Zhuofan has no chance of making a comeback. Everyone wrote Zhuofan off as having lost. With his soul in the other's claws, what else could this be if not a loss? Only Chu Qingqing kept staring at him with her pure eyes filled with hope. Sister Qingqing, it's done. Yilin is too strong. Zihe lost. Danner did not know how to comfort her. However, Chu Qingqing's gaze was firm. I know he had no hopes for this battle, but as long as he did not give in himself, I still believe he will win. For sure. The girls watched her with a start, then they sighed. This is called blind faith. The exalted shook their heads, more and more amazed by Yilin. Who is this kid? His tempering of the Heaven Dragon Soul is so thorough. We used to think Zhuofan's version of Heaven Dragon Soul was better, but I never thought it possible for Yilin's to be even greater. I fear that not even our knowledge of it can compare. Exalted He Ran sighed in shock. Exalted by Mei had to admit. Yes, just like in a meeting of rivals, there's someone better. The same applies to Heaven Dragon Souls. Yilin had followed the best path for his strengthening. I can hardly believe the Heaven Dragon Soul could reach such a level of power. Just like they say, the new replaces the old. Old-timers like us. Exalted by Mei sighed, and Exalted He Ran nodded. He sighed as he stood up, looking at the judge. Yilin won. Have them return. What? The judge jerked and sent the two Exalted an incredulous look. In all the Double Dragon gatherings, the Exalted had only been silent observers, being a symbol of fairness, not once interfering and always going by the rules. Only this time, even as plenty of time remained, the Exalted wanted to cut it short and declare a winner. This never happened. Ever. The judge was dumbstruck. Exalted He Ran sighed. The outcome is obvious. Do you want to let it go on until one of them loses their life? The judge reacted at last and looked at the little valley. The exalted were afraid of losing Zhuofan, so they stepped in. Such an honor! In the eyes of the highest leaders, the life of a human was worthless. The double dragon gathering had had too many deaths than none could count, yet not once did they want to save one, except Zhuofan. Sigh, from now on, the exalted will have a favorite pupil. What honor! Sighing, the judge bowed to the exalted, then eyed the gatekeepers as he cleared his throat. He was just about to announce it. But then, creepy laughter came out before the judge, or the gatekeepers could act. The eerie laughter made one's spine tingle. It was the kind of voice a demon would make in the dead of night as it banged on your door. Hi, self-righteous punk, even arrogance has its limit. You want me to surrender? Humph, no dice. The creepy laughter came from Zhuofan, who was looking just as frail as before, but his eyes were sharp and clear. He had lost his previous stern look, and was now looking positively insane. Is that all your decimating Golden Heaven Dragon King can do? Then consider it my win. Variant, Heaven-devouring demonic Dragon King. Everyone, even Yi Lin, did not react as Zhuofan's dragon soul once again roared. The scarlet glow faded, its eyes closed as if asleep, and when he opened them again, they were pitch black. The previous rampant aura of the scarlet dragon was lost as well, giving way for one of pure evil. Its pitch black eyes only amplified the dread, feeling as if it sucked the very soul out of you. Its huge bulk was turning black as well, releasing unspeakable danger even as it was trapped. Yi Lin gaped. What the hell? How did it change colors? Even its aura is different. It's like I'm looking at a different soul. The exalted were frozen in place as well. Logic dictated that one's soul changed depending on one's cultivation methods and insights. Once it took the owner's characteristics, it could never change again. So why was this one doing it twice? First it was brutal and savage but quite upstanding. Now it turned vicious and cruel, like the worst killer in history. For these two changes to appear on a single soul was beyond everyone's comprehension. The exalted themselves would vow such a weird thing had never happened. Not just them, but even Danqing Shun, who guided Zhuofan, had a goony look. Is this what the kid understood by soul variation? It's too damn weird. It's as freaky as him. Then again, just what is his cultivation method anyway? It brings together many aspects. Everyone went slack-jawed, even the judge and the gatekeepers. Zhuofan ignored the obvious dumb looks and snickered. With all the intel gathered, it's time for me to counterattack. The huge black dragon roared, and it caused everyone's scalp to tingle, even Yi Lin's. The black dragon flicked its tail, uncaring about the golden flames, and it was now its turn to wind around the golden dragon. It then opened its gaping mouth and sank its teeth into the golden dragon, forcing it to wail. Yi Lin's mind felt a sharp pain as his soul was damaged. As a reaction, the golden flames exploded like a huge volcano, wrapping around the black dragon. However, the black dragon was creepy like its owner. It did not fear them, unlike the almighty Scarlet Dragon King. The dark aura around it absorbed the flames as they approached. Yi Lin was shocked beyond belief at this. What? That's dragon ancestors decimating golden flame. Even so, Zhuofan's cultivation method from the 9 Serenities Emperor, the demon transformation art, combined with the heaven dragon soul, resulted in heaven-devouring demonic dragon king, able to absorb anything and everything in existence. Yi Lin's decimating golden flame stood no chance against such a dragon soul. Yi Lin looked grave and gnashed his teeth. Is this Qilin's ability? Ha, what do you think? Zhuofan grinned. I told you, we're humans in the end. Sacred Beast's path isn't completely useful to us. Do you still think you got what it takes to win against me in a soul battle? Yi Lin's brow shook as his eyes looked sharp. I misjudged you. You still added more tricks to your soul. In that case, allow me to show you the purest heaven dragon soul. Yi Lin's hands flashed through a series of signs, his eyes flickering with golden flames. Chapter 700, Vaulting Dragon King. Chapter 700, Vaulting Dragon King. Proofreader Papatonks. A dragon is the strongest and toughest creature. Your demonic dragon is very weird and can handle my flames, but it's still too soft. Let me show you how a true dragon should be. With a shout, Yi Lin's signs came to an end. Reveal your brutality, decimating Golden Heaven Dragon King, scale shedding. Roar. A brutal roar came from his dragon, and it released a blinding golden light. As it shook, it threw off the demonic dragon. The demonic dragon had no chance to latch on again, as the golden dragon's scales bristled and shot like tiny blades at the demonic dragon. Those scales contained scorching flames that could burn anything. Zhuo Fan's eyes narrowed, and he had a very bad feeling. Without any hesitation, based on his double lives intuition, he had his soul move away. It proved to be too late as the scales fell from the golden dragon like rain, hitting the demonic dragon fully, and sending its golden flames right into its body. The demonic dragon had no time to absorb them, as they instantly detonated. The violent power and the searing flames left the demonic dragon to jerk from pain and torment. Zhuo Fan was also assaulted by the pain in his mind. Yi Lin snickered, getting his dragon free from the demonic dragon, and ordering it to claw the other's skull, to attack it from two fronts. The pitch-black aura on the demonic dragon scattered from the explosions, and its ears were deafened by it, making the claw that came take it by surprise. Grinning, Yi Lin saw his dragon clawing the demonic dragon's face, as if he was slapping Zhuo Fan's. Ha ha ha, even if your dragon can handle my golden flames, it's too soft. A dragon should be strong and tough. That dragon you got by meshing up all kinds of sundries are no match for pure perfection. My dragon has you beat in power alone. You're no match to me even in soul. Yi Lin had a crazed look in his eyes as he cackled. The audience saw Zhuo Fan just make a comeback, yet was being pushed back the next second, burning his last hope. Exalted double dragons shook their heads. They were shocked by Zhuo Fan's tactic, but they had to admit Yi Lin's dragon soul was far more complete in its adaptation, simply perfect. Zhuo Fan's scarlet dragon and demonic dragon each had their strong suit, but it had heaps of weaknesses as well. It was very easy for them to be routed and pushed back, unless the Exalted seemed to recall something and quickly denied it. Like that will ever happen. A twice-altered soul is already miraculous enough, so how can two different forces? Moreover, they just don't fit. It's impossible. Zhuo Fan had given his all in this fight, but it still was not enough. If he could fuse those two variants, Sword God Sex Xie Tianshang said. Wen Tao shook his head on the spot. That's downright impossible. I have no idea how that demonic dragon even came to be. But what is certain is that it is an extreme Yin. Yin is soft, and virtue can restrain the golden flames just how our soft sword can handle attacks. However, that scarlet dragon is extremely brutal and hard. While Yin and Yang can engender each other, they can also repel one another. If these two dragons are united, it will become unlike anything in this world. Nothing could stop it. But if they clash, the result will only harm oneself. That's why Brother Zhuo's dragon soul can take both Yin and Yang forms. This is truly amazing in itself. If he were to fuse them, their engendering is still not enough. Even if he does, it might not be Yi Lin's match because he is still lacking? Still, Xie Tianshang raised an eyebrow. Wen Tao spoke with a stern face. A dragon's brutality. A dragon is extremely strong and hard. But Yi Lin's dragon soul is also a flame dragon. Fire is very explosive, and once attacked it would rain havoc. Brother Zhuo's dragon soul lacked in this department on both accounts. His attacks just don't make the cut while his defenses are still too weak to take those blows. As you saw from the scale shedding. However, as he was commenting on the fight, a roar came from within the screen that startled everyone. Zhuo Fan's dragon soul was shifting again, back to his scarlet form. It flashed its claws and stopped the golden dragon's attacks. With a roar of fury, it then smashed the other's head with a claw and threw it to the ground. Almighty Scarlet Dragon King was truly a king in terms of raw power. Not even the golden dragon could match it. As for hardness, he was among the best. The audience once again clamored in excitement. Zhuo Fan used the two variations to fight back. But then, the golden dragon twisted and flicked its tail, striking the scarlet dragon with its golden scales. The scarlet dragon whipped its own tail to protect its head. As the explosions echoed, it still wailed. Its tough scales were falling from the relentless assault, its power waning from the wounds. Xie Tianshang now understood what Wen Tao meant by brutal. Zhuo Fan's variations could not stop Yi Lin's scale shedding. Against such an explosive attack, Zhuo Fan could do nothing. The experts noticed it as well. Even with the two forms of dragon soul, Zhuo Fan could not get out of that impasse. Everyone lamented, and the exalted gave the judge a look to get to it and calling it off. Shaking, Zhuo Fan bled from the mouth, but he did not mind it. He had the almighty Scarlet Dragon King, turned back into heaven-devouring demonic Dragon King, to absorb the remaining golden flames on its body. Finally breathing easier, he knew the two forms were not enough. Zhuo Fan, it's the end of the line for you. Your variations can't take my dragon. A second rate is a second rate. How can it ever match a perfect dragon soul? Ha ha ha. Yi Lin looked at Zhuo Fan with pride, filled with confidence. The golden dragon was shaking its tail as well, giving the black dragon a look of disdain. Zhuo Fan sneered. He never was one to take to others showing off, especially in his face. So he scratched his nose and said, "Brat, enough with the patronizing or you'll be sorry. It's not over until it's over. Still trying to fight the inevitable? Humph, it's your funeral. I'm being serious when I tell you that I haven't gone all out. Or you'd be dead. Hehehe, you're not the only one. When I go crazy I can't control myself." Zhuo Fan snickered. Yi Lin's face twitched. "Are you calling me lunatic? Humph, we'll just see who goes crazy first." Decimating golden flame is called decimating because it can burn the heavens. Proceed at your own risk. You might collapse the heavens by burning them, but I will hold them up. Ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan had a creepy grin. Yi Lin's brow twitched, finding it odd. What's got this punk so confident when his two dragon souls are useless? He didn't get to find an answer as Zhuo Fan's dragon soul turned into almighty Scarlet Dragon King as it soared higher and higher. Yi Lin mocked. You're going up even as you're about to lose? This time you won't get to change your dragon soul. I won't let you. Scale shedding. His dragon sent golden scales like rain upon the scarlet dragon. Only this time, the scarlet dragon did not dodge, and it was not releasing black energy to stop it either. Everyone was stunned. Was Zhuo Fan going to make the scarlet dragon face the scales head-on? That's suicide. It won't help you at all. But as the golden scales approached, the red glow on the scarlet dragon dimmed, and its body was see-through. The huge dragon then lit up in an azure flame, engulfing its body. It went on like this, like an azure fire dragon. Dragon Soul variant vaulting Dragon King. Zhuo Fan's hand made some new signs as he shouted. Chapter 701. 4 Dragon King variants. Chapter 701. 4 Dragon King variants. Proofreader Papatonks. He's changing again. Everyone was becoming stone statues with how often they got stunned by Zhuo Fan's skills. First, the mere fact there were 2 variations of the same soul was incomprehensible, and now they found out there was a third one as well. All around was nothing but gasping and slack jaws. Just what on earth is this kid's cultivation method and path to end up with 3 variations? They had no way of knowing Zhuo Fan's demon transformation art contained everything in existence. The azure flame was a true mediator between yin and yang, holding every aspect of everything in this world. It fits everything to perfection, not causing a single conflict. So to say Zhuo Fan had 3 variations was a gross understatement. He could go for hundreds if he wanted to. As for Yi Lin, who received a dragon ancestor's inheritance, his soul's path ended at decimating Golden Heaven Dragon King. Anything deviating from it was impossible. Wen Tao's soul was the gentle sword, overcoming strength with softness. If he changed his sword soul into a great sword, it just did not fit his path, thus impossible to achieve it. It was because Zhuo Fan's cultivation method conformed to all paths, coming from the 9 Serenities Emperor himself. He focused all his knowledge on making it, allowing him to go on without having disharmony among the wide array of skills he got from all those experts. It was also why he failed to grasp a deeper understanding of Tao. It was just like he concluded, while Yi Lin and the others were plumbing the depths of Tao, he was taking in all its broadness. This fight was no different. No one knew better about being a sacred beast inheritor than Yi Lin. The almighty Scarlet Dragon King, a sacred beast inheritance variant, was not inferior to decimating Golden Heaven Dragon King at all. It was just that Zhuofan's knowledge of Qilin's power was lacking and could not showcase its true might. While on the opposite side, Zhuofan could use the shifts in the soul to compensate for his shortcomings. For this particular instance, he needed something to curb the brutality of that raging fire. And who better than the vaulting Dragon King, in harmony with all things? Roar! The Azure Dragon showed no fear beneath the hail of thousands of burning scales. It even charged on excitedly. The eyes of the audience widened, and their hearts skipped with worry that the Azure Dragon would meet the same fate as the other two. But then they watched in shock as the scales went right into the Azure Dragon. They exploded. And then the golden flames released a golden flash covered in azure flames to soothe its savagery, turning it into azure flames at the end. The people went crazy when the savage scales entered the Azure Dragon. To see them turned into Azure Dragon's power, whose flames were burning stronger now. The Azure Dragon roared to mock the Golden Dragon as it kept charging. Is this vaulting Kuimping's chaos flame? Yi Lin cried out in shock. Master said that of the 5 great sacred beasts who harness primal chaos power, only 2 wielded divine flames. One was he, decimating dragon ancestor, wielder of a fierce flame, the decimating golden flame that can destroy everything. And the other was the head of the 5 great sacred beasts, vaulting Kuimping, wielder of the gentle flame, chaos flame of creation. The flames also earned them their titles. The fierce flame destroyed, and the gentle flame created. The 5 great sacred beasts can bring heaven down, and the gentle flame can hold it up. One can say they are yin and yang, engendering and clashing with each other. The only thing that can soothe the brutality of the strongest fierce flame can only be the strongest gentle flame. I just can't believe it's on him. Does vaulting Kuimping have his back? Then whose disciple is he? Qilin's or Kuimping's? Yi Lin found Zhuofan as one huge enigma, impossible to unravel. He didn't know which sacred beast's inheritance he got. Zhuofan hardly ever displayed the azure flame to anyone. Then there was the mighty Qilin arm he relied on the most that got Yi Lin to side with him being a Qilin disciple. As for the purple lightning, it had to be because he got drowned in it in that canyon. It didn't count. Why else would his use of it look so clumsy? So after careful analysis, he was certain that Zhuofan was a Qilin disciple, wasting a power he was unfamiliar with. Glossing over the melee battle, there was no way he could be defeated in a soul battle. Now he found out that all of this was wrong. Zhuofan finally revealed the power that could contain his own. The Chaos Flame changed the Heaven Dragon's soul into Vaulting Dragon King, in complete opposition to his decimating Golden Heaven Dragon King. If you only consider the power's character, yes, but once you add them to a dragon soul. Yi Lin's eyes flashed, and he no longer sat still as before. Having discovered Zhuofan's nature, he ordered his golden dragon to charge at the Azure Dragon for an attack. Humph, the Azure Flame and the Golden Flame are against one another. But when it comes to dragon souls, strongest and hardest is the way to go. You really think that you can overcome my fierce flame's strength by using that gentle flame on the dragon soul? Yi Lin glared at Zhuofan and roared. Grinning, Zhuofan knew from the start where he stood, and had never had any certainty he would win. Now though he sneered, having found all he wanted to know. This proved that Zhuofan's tactic worked. The punk is anxious. All that's left is to go all out. Showing a creepy smile, Zhuofan taunted. Haven't you heard of overcoming hardness with softness? Are you sure your fierce flame golden dragon can beat my gentle flame azure dragon? Without a doubt, Yi Lin raised his head as he declared. A dragon is tough and strong. No matter how opposing are our 2 flames, when it comes down to it, my golden dragon will trump yours. Yi Lin made a sign, and the golden dragon roared as his body exploded in golden flames. In a blink, it was on the azure dragon, baring its claws. Bam! The golden dragon claw struck the azure dragon's spine. The berserk golden flame charged into the azure flame, burning the azure dragon's back. Yet the azure flame quickly shifted and wrapped around the golden flame, swallowing in a blink of an eye. That did nothing to stop the mighty and hard claw from making the azure dragon's spine creak and cry out. Zhuofan's brow hardened as he felt a stab of pain in his mind. He chose to clench his teeth and bear it. Seeing his moment was here, his eyes flashed and sent the azure dragon to claw the golden dragon now that it was wide open. Yilin mocked. Useless, the azure dragon with the gentle flame is good for defense, not attack. This claw won't harm my dragon at all. I don't think so. Zhuofan grinned, his eyes glinting evilly. A flash of red appeared on the dragon's soul. Yilin expected it as he sneered. I knew you would change back to Almighty Scarlet Dragon King. Only the Scarlet Dragon can really attack among all your variations. Well, too bad he only has strength. In a soul battle, power is the last resort. At most, it will only push my dragon back and not harm it. When did I say I had only 3? Cutting him off, Zhuofan's evil grin was on full display. A rumble echoed in everyone's ears, a prelude to the shocking scene that came. The decimating Golden Heaven Dragon King's belly was run through by a dragon claw, throwing spiritual energy everywhere. Yilin shook, and his eyes bugged out in shock. Blood flowed from his mouth and dripped onto the ground, but it still couldn't lift the confusion in his eyes. How is this possible? Logically, those 3 dragons can't harm my dragon. Yilin's brow shook. He turned his stiff head around to see the golden dragon with a huge body, unlike any of the 3 variants he had seen before. It was covered in purple lightning. The crackle of thunder rumbled each time it streaked its body. Its sharp claw flickered purple as it came out of the golden dragon's other side. Tivet's heaven-crushing phoenix's berserk purple lightning. Yilin's eyes shook, recalling having seen the purple lightning on Zhuofan. Since he got 3 types of dragon souls, what stopped him from having one with purple lightning as well? But he got careless when he was focused on dealing with the azure flame. Zhuofan could read him like a book inside. Finally nailed you. What do you mean? Yilin wore a mask of confusion. Zhuofan chuckled, in no hurry to reply. He pointed at the purple dragon and took his time. Dragon Soul variant. Heaven-crushing Dragon King. It's the only one that can do some damage to you. So before I could use it, I had to make you forget it ever existed. Yilin shook as it dawned on him. The blood leaked from his mouth, bloodening his shocked face. You're telling me everything so far has been to lead me into this trap. Wu Qingqiu was also shocked. Damn it, he's been duped. Chapter 702 Brutalized. Chapter 702 Brutalized. Proofreader Papatonks. Senior brother, what did you say? A disciple asked, confused. Wu Qingqiu frowned and pondered before sighing. I'm not too clear either. But from what I see of the last strike, I have a vague feeling Zhuofan had been stringing junior brother along. The disciples were startled. Wu Qingqiu continued. Look at Zhuofan's 4 dragon souls. Neither of them can stand up to junior brother. But in the end, his dragon soul ended up heavily wounded. Don't you find it odd? It's been obvious so far that Zhuofan had been on the ropes all along. Yeah, did that punk blindside him? One shouted. Wu Qingqiu sighed. Even if he did, he needed perfect timing. This timing was either when the opponent was the most careless, or if he created it himself. Zhuofan likely chose the latter. How can you be sure? Based on Zhuofan's purple dragon's claw attack, he grasped it perfectly to turn the fight around. I find it hard to believe a true expert like junior brother would be so careless as to give his opponent such an opening to exploit. That is why he was made to play along with the others' tunes. Wu Qingqiu frowned. But when exactly did all of this start? I just can't see it. There were so many people just as shocked as he was. Zhuofan flipped the table a bit too fast, even by their standards. He had been stomped at every turn till now. However, a few crafty old foxes around saw through it. So young, but not just strong but also cunning. Even we were duped by his act, and thought he couldn't win. Exalted He Ran held his beard and glanced at Bai Mei. Old timer, see that? Yeah, 4 dragon souls paving the way to success. Exalted Bai Mei nodded, his eyes flashing. The Scarlet Dragon was first taken out to test the Golden Dragon's power. The second variant was to lower the Golden Flame's threat and lay the groundwork for the coup de grace. The third variant was bait. The Azure Dragon was in direct opposition to the Golden Dragon King, and since it was weak in direct battle, it was the perfect cover to get him close. And to attack the Azure Flame and wound his opponent, the Golden Dragon used all its Golden Flame to strike the Azure Dragon's flames within it, but it also left itself wide open for an attack. Exalted He Ran finished. Exalted Bai Mei nodded. All of this had been prepared in advance. Yi Lin revealed an opening in the end, because Zhuo Fan's 3 variants left a huge impression on him, causing him to lower his guard. The Demonic Dragon and Azure Dragon had weak attacks, with only the Scarlet Dragon strong, but not explosive enough. It was the only one that could have attacked him, but who would have thought the real killer move was yet to come? I don't find this purple dragon impressive at all, but the purple lightning is savagely brutal, just like the Golden Flame. But Zhuo Fan had yet to train it to its peak, or at least stand up to the Golden Flame. Yi Lin just had to leave a bit of Golden Flame around his body, and the purple dragon would have failed. However, hadn't Zhuo Fan done everything to get him to lower the Golden Flame guard? Exalted He Ran sighed. Especially that Azure Dragon. Its defense is the best, but it had no power to attack. It's like a 3-year-old fiddling with a golden bauble, surrounded by 2 bodyguards with 1 arm and 1 leg. Any self-respecting thug wouldn't be caught dead missing such an obvious easy target. He'd go as far as ignoring the crippled bodyguards, as he went for that bauble with the blade out. Bai Mei sighed. Old timer, that's a bit crude. Being confident of victory, Yi Lin fell for Zhuo Fan's trap. If he had been cool-headed, the victory might have been his. A shame. What, the world doesn't lack people yearning for a win. If you were to see your adversary removing your advantages one step at a time, wouldn't you go for the kill when you find the best chance show itself? Exalted He Ran raised an eyebrow. Exalted Bai Mei chuckled. It's all due to that weird kid Zhuo Fan's twisted mind. Yi Lin is stronger than him, but fails in terms of mentality. This battle was like a spider biting at its prey until it fell over. You can't guard against something like that. Exalted He Ran gave an understanding nod. The kid has his path and heart. His future's going to be bright. The western lands are going to change. In the little valley, Dan Qingshun watched the fight clearly and nodded. Ha ha ha. I bet those 2 coots could tell how the soul battle would turn. Yet they never would have thought this outcome had been set up ever since the melee. Did you really think I couldn't beat you in melee? Zhuo Fan looked at Yi Lin with a smug look. Yi Lin glared at Zhuo Fan, his heart in shock. You're telling me the whole thing was staged? Zhuo Fan shrugged. Fine. I guess I lost the melee. I can't beat you there. Yi Lin's face twitched as he glared. Are you toying with me? However, while I had been prepared to lose in that aspect, that didn't mean I liked it. Zhuo Fan squinted and showed a crafty look. An ever-winning general isn't always victorious because he never lost, but because he turns defeat into victory. You're the dragon ancestor's disciple, a sacred beast priding itself on its strong body. Since you're his disciple, your body can't be any weaker. You got its entire inheritance, while I only got bits and pieces from a Qilin. It was obvious melee was lost to me. Though the loss had its perks. Sacred beasts are hugely arrogant, and you're not far off either. You had let the melee win get to your head, thus giving me the advantage. Moreover, when you beat me in melee, you already thought you had crushed my strongest form, and were sure of victory. This led to being careless in the soul battle, my second advantage. As for the third, when you used the golden flame in melee, it gave me time to analyze it, and set the best way to fight you in soul. Yi Lin shook, staring at Zhuo Fan's evil grin in complete stupefaction. He never thought Zhuo Fan would be so invested in this fight, that he took everything into account. His master never taught him that. Master only said that the winner lorded over the loser, and that power was everything. What could possibly be more important in a fight than one's strength? Reality showed his master was just a wild beast. Their fights were crude and simple, while humans used their brains. He was so strong that no one could have played him. Adding to that, he had never met someone as crafty as this prick among the simple people of the Ultimate Clarity sect. That was how he ended up like this. Now that he met Zhuofan, lording over him with power, but not in brains as well, being duped all the way. He only realized it when he fell for it. So a simple fight has so many aspects when humans are involved. The human world is so complicated. Later, you still held me in contempt when you were stronger than me, to the point you went easy. Why? Because you overlooked my purple lightning. Zhuofan continued. While it's still fairly weak, it's not useless either. As the 3 dragon souls were laid to bear, and you defeated them one by one, stroking your ego and startling you, the sudden mood changes made you forget my purple lightning. Making you rush was part of the plan, like insurance, in case you were paranoid to the extreme, and this attack of mine went bust since I stood no chance against you in a prolonged battle. But now, didn't I tell you, punk, that you're too self-righteous? Zhuofan made a sign, and the purple dragon flicked its claw, pulling it out of the golden dragon's body, before letting purple lightning flash and sink into its chest again. Yilin cried out. His soul was already damaged. If this one hit, he would be a goner. So he had the golden flame cover its body and defend against the purple lightning attack. The purple lightning struck the flames but fizzled out. This showed Zhuofan's purple lightning wasn't up to par. Yilin felt like crying. He shouldn't have been so eager to win and let himself suffer for it. Even if he had Zhuofan beaten to a pulp, he still couldn't hurt him with 4 rubbish dragons. But now that same rubbish did him in. The golden dragon was wrapped in golden flames, so the purple dragon turned into the demonic one and bit down to suck the flames right out of it. When the golden dragon shot its scales in defense, the other just turned into an azure dragon to cancel the attack. Then it changed into a scarlet dragon as it flicked its tail and sent the golden dragon flying. This wouldn't have hurt, but since he was so heavily wounded, it added insult to the injury. The scarlet dragon aimed for its wound as it clawed at him. Even if its claws didn't harm the golden dragon, the heavy impact went deep into the wound and made the whole affair highly unsettling. Yilin had to spit blood every time because of it. The pain in his head got so bad, he felt it would explode. 4 rubbish dragon souls were ganging up on a perfect heaven dragon soul. The decimating dragon ancestor would have exploded in anger if he saw this. Chapter 703, Soul Harmony. Chapter 703, Soul Harmony. Proofreader, Papatonks. Bang! Those were the sounds of dragon souls clashing, though they weren't that intense, just a one-sided beating. Decimating Golden Heaven Dragon King was fatally wounded, leaving it at a severe disadvantage. The attacks of the Scarlet Dragon were shrugged off before. The other dragons couldn't do much against it. Even the most brutal purple dragon couldn't break its golden flame defense. To sum it up, no matter which of these 4 dragon souls attacked, none could threaten the golden dragon. However, after the purple dragon's sneak attack, it left a huge opening in its defenses, to the point the scarlet dragon's attacks passed through and could deal some damage. The 4 dragon souls thus kept switching, the azure and demonic ones, for defense against the golden flames to put him in a position where any attack was useless. So when he stopped attacking, the scarlet dragon joined the fray, slamming into its wound. If he wanted to fight back again, the azure and black dragons would only be waiting for him. The strong azure flame could completely contain the brutality of the golden flames. Even if he went all out, it would only give the azure dragon a slight wound. Then it would turn into the purple dragon and send those savage purple lightning strikes when it was most vulnerable. This way, the golden dragon was stuck in a passive position. It was like how a big guy was having his arms and legs tied up and letting a bunch of brats try to beat him. Oh, but one of them was carrying a blade. He'd shiver every time he watched the blade approach, dodging as much as possible, but never attacking since there was a risk the blade would take his life. The purple lightning was the weakest of Zhuofan's powers, making the purple dragon the weakest of his 4 dragons. But the threat remained regardless, to the point that the golden dragon feared another sneak attack and did not fight back. This way, he could only let Zhuofan's 4 dragon souls rain claws and fangs on it, as it was beaten repeatedly. The audience was gaping at the sudden turn of events. How come the mighty golden dragon tuned up to be like a scaredy cat? The people were excited, feeling life was a play because of how the positions could change so fast. The girls were even more shocked, buzzing about and pointing. Sister Qingcheng, what just happened? I don't get it. How did he get the upper hand? Chu Qingcheng needed a few times to recover. She shook her head and gave a bright smile. I always thought I understood him, but I was wrong. I never thought that he'd win by using his weakness. Shui Ruohua's brow shook as she looked at Zhuofan in shock. A true and capable man. Who would dare to even consider looking for victory among its faults? Humph, for Yi Lin to be defeated when he was at the top of his game. He must be a moron. Xian Xiaoyu spat in hatred. Sword God Sex saw the big turn around and looked on in shock. Wen Tao held his head. Tianshang, your brother has opened my eyes. I always thought it was strength that made him a freak, but now I see what it means to be ever victorious. It's all about the mind. This is not a win gained through power, since those 4 dragon souls couldn't beat the golden dragon. Yet look at the golden dragon now, being beaten black and blue. Heavens, just how did he come up with such a strategy? Ha ha ha, what's so hard to believe? Haven't I been saying that he comes from a lowly third-rate clan all this time? Yet in just 10 years, he got it to rule the empire. It's not just guts alone. He's been in constant danger as he schemed with the other sides. One wrong move, and it would be the end. He had dealt with many old foxes on his way too. Xia Tianshang smiled. Senior brother, you should know how cruel the vie for power in a kingdom is. It's not as simple as the competitions between sections. He also got the 3 greatest minds under him as well. This proves his mind is unlike anyone else's. Yi Lin might be an amazing genius that is stronger than him, but when it comes to schemes, no sex young master can defend against him. Wen Tao eyed him and then turned to look at Zhuofan. This was a big ploy all along. However, regardless of what it is, people would always lean on what they are best good at. I just can't believe he didn't scheme to win in melee, and waited for when their souls were out. Such courage earned my respect. Who could have such confidence in him? The lone breach. 3 voices echoed out. 2 were the exalted, and the other was Danqing Shun. Their voices carried praises. Danqing Shun held his beard and was ready to go. The lone breach is a dangerous tactic. On a battlefield where the defensive position has its strongest defense, it caused them to neglect it, leaving fewer troops. It's always assumed the enemy would attack the weakest points in defense, so that's where the main force was placed. But experienced generals always do the opposite, concentrating all their forces on the lone point of the defenses, winning in a single blow, and catching the opponent off guard. By the time he reacted, the battle was over. This requires courage and wisdom. Failure means disaster. Zhuofan did the same with Yi Lin. He stroked his ego for the soul battle, and caught everyone by surprise when he went for the win. Ha ha ha, the brat is truly bold and cunning. The winner is settled, and now I can do what I came here to do. Danqing Shun was carefree, as if he had been fighting and left. However, a roar came from behind that caught everyone's attention. Zhuofan, one of us will stand on the other's shoulder to reach the peak, but that won't be you. Yi Lin roared and spewed blood as he did. His eyes were filled with fighting spirit, unwilling to give up yet. Zhuofan totally got him. The 2 were more or less sacred beast inheritors, so it stood to reason that it had some influence in their fight. In Yi Lin's case, the influence was greater as the dragon ancestor's disciple. Losing this battle means being in the other's allegiance. This was the way of the beast. It will leave a huge scar in one's mind that he did not want to have. Zhuofan was the same. He didn't want his mind to become burdened and stay in Yi Lin's shadow. It would severely impede his pursuit of Tao. So the two had entered a stalemate. Grinning evilly, Zhuofan made a sign, and the four dragon souls constantly shifted, speeding up the beating of the golden dragon. He wanted to get it over with fast. Yet he was stalling with his speech as he taunted. Humph, the winner is settled. Give up. If Dragon Ancestor knew you lost to me, an inheritor of 3 sacred beasts, he'd understand it too. Not even he can fight 3 alone. Bullshit, sacred beasts are arrogant. Master won't bat an eye even if he were to fight 4 by himself. Yilin roared. Zhuofan grinned. A wise man submits to circumstances. In a sacred beast battle of 4 versus 1, defeat is obvious. Your master must be a fool if he fought in those circumstances. Your master's the fool, Yilin cursed back. At this time, Zhuofan's almighty Scarlet Dragon King once again whipped its tail right on the golden dragon's wound, and made it shudder. Yilin spat blood again, and could hardly keep going. Zhuofan snickered and kept making signs while taunting. Just then, Wu Qingqiu noticed something and shouted, Junior brother, don't let him get to you. If you have a way to strike, now's the time. He's stalling. Do it now before it's too late. I've been duped again. Startled, Yilin glared at Zhuofan and spat. Zhuofan, you wretched scumbag, you dare play me again? Are you even a sacred beast inheritor? I already told you we're humans. In war there's also deception. Haven't your elders ever told you before setting out that you need to use both your fists and your brain in a brawl? Zhuofan raised a taunting eyebrow. Yilin was furious and about to curse, but Wu Qingqiu's warning woke him up again. Gnashing his teeth, Yilin stomped and flew 100 meters back. He had the golden dragon flick its tail and get away as well. Yilin's face twitched as he stared at Zhuofan in rage. Let me show you how a real sacred beast disciple fights. Strength is everything. I fear none of your petty tricks. Yilin made a sign and shouted, Soul Origin, Golden Dragon Transformation, Soul Harmony. Chapter 704 Flawless. Chapter 704 Flawless. Proofreader Papatonks. Roar. The golden dragon coiled in the air around Yilin. The golden flames burned hotter, and yet faded with time. The golden dragon's huge bulk shrank as it drew closer to Yilin. But the dragon did not enter his mind. Instead, it focused on his body, blending with his flesh, and spreading through every cell. With a fashionable golden flame explosion, Yilin's body was covered in a thick dragon scale armor, each individual scale containing the volatile and destructive golden flame. A mere flick of the wrist, and the effect was like the golden dragon whipping his tail, sending a rush of superheated air storming everywhere. Whether it met the mountains, plants, or wildlife, they were all decimated. This can't be. Zhuofan was shocked to the core. The exalted showed the same reaction as they jumped to their feet. This is something only a soul harmony stage expert can do, harmonizing body and soul. The soul harmony stage was what came after the ethereal stage. It allowed one to focus their soul power into their flesh, for soul and body to become one. The body would thus become a natural defense of the soul, keeping it from harm. In other words, while Yilin's soul was greatly damaged and could no longer fight, by combining it with his body, his soul power could be fully displayed. His body would also protect it from any more harm, completely nulling the effect of Zhuofan's sneak attack through the use of the purple dragon. Yilin was back to when his soul was in its best shape. Moreover, since the soul and body were now one, Yilin's soul and body power combined to make him even stronger. This outcome left Zhuofan frowning once more. For crying out loud, am I going to fail right at the end? We're back where we started. No, it's worse, actually far worse. Zhuofan clenched his fists and gnashed his teeth. The others gasped in shock at the incredible development. What's going on? An ethereal stage expert can use a soul harmony stage's ability? This is insane. Then again, if one would take a simple look at Zhuofan, in the radiant stage, one would see him using his soul as an ethereal stage expert would. Gods, these people are aberrations, one more than the other. We're the normal ones here, yet we can't hold a candle to them. Ugh, it pisses me off. Only Chu Qingcheng and the girls were worried for Zhuofan. Seeing the tables turned once more, they held their deep gazes on his figure, hoping for the best. Ha ha ha, didn't see that coming, did you? A sacred beast's body is the best, and it becomes flawless when the soul harmonizes with it. As the dragon ancestor's disciple, this soul harmony skill comes naturally. Yilin mocked, seeing Zhuofan's shaken face, and grinned. Now I'm a miniature version of the decimating dragon ancestor. Let's see you beat me now. Yilin shot for Zhuofan, the powerful golden flames surging into a typhoon. Zhuofan could feel the blistering heat before it reached him, practically cooking him alive. Zhuofan squinted, and his face became stern. He made a sign, and called the dragon soul to protect him. 100-meter-long savage dragon appeared before Zhuofan. The scarlet glow was so strong it struck fear in the average man, containing unspeakable raw power. Roar! The almighty Scarlet Dragon King saw Yilin was coming and clawed at the tiny human. A great power pressed on Yilin's shoulder, but Yilin only huffed as he spat. A stream of golden flames covered the dragon, even though it came from a tiny human. In a flash, the golden flames spread and scorched the dragon until it wailed. Its attack had no chance of continuing because of it. Yilin laughed in contempt. Zhuofan merely smirked, bearing through the piercing headache as he made a sign. The almighty Scarlet Dragon King turned into the heaven-devouring demonic Dragon King. The black aura around it swallowed the flames, and the pain vanished. Zhuofan eased a breath as well. However, Yilin was not about to let all that bashing Zhuofan put him through go with just a little singeing. Now would he? And this demonic dragon only knew how to gulp down flames. Other than that, it was pretty much useless. So Yilin jumped in front of it and waved his hands, sending thousands of fire motes at it in the form of rain. Scale shedding. Bang! The explosions didn't let up as the demonic dragon was bombarded under the heavy rain of attacks. It wailed in pain and twisted its body. Zhuofan shook and rushed to turn it into the vaulting Dragon King. The azure flame swallowed all the incoming golden scales and removed the danger. However, Yilin snickered now that the azure dragon was out. It was all this dragon's fault that pushed him into giving his all and leaving himself open to the purple dragon. It had to suffer for its transgression. So to get his sweet vengeance and prove his limitless power to Zhuofan for the last time, Yilin used a different move. Yilin jumped above the azure dragon's head and punched down. All the golden flames were gathered in that tiny fist, leaving himself open again. Yilin, you dare? Zhuofan cried out threateningly. Yilin mocked. Just watch me. Go ahead, use the purple dragon to attack me. Yilin's golden flamed fist smashed down just like the golden dragon claw attack from before. The powerful golden flames scattered the azure flames on the azure dragon, and it hit its spine, making it howl in pain as it took the entire blow. But soon, just like before, the azure dragon turned purple, and it clawed at Yilin's chest. Pa! The crack of thunder sounded, and Yilin's body was flung away, but not too far. Looking down at his chest and the singed area, he merely dusted it off as he taunted in a condescending tone. It didn't even tingle. Your purple lightning is so utterly weak. I just can't imagine how on earth you even got to hurt the golden dragon the first time. Zhuofan's brow shook, and he held his head as it felt like it was splitting. Yilin was different from before. The sneak attack worked last time, because the golden dragon's defenses were down. While this time, Yilin harmonized with his soul, making the body become a shield for the soul. In other words, Yilin was flawless. Nothing could harm him now. Unless of course by a powerful attack. While he could fight for longer against the battle-hungry Yilin, and the azure dragon could hold on for longer. But even then, he could not see how he could come on top in this. He was facing a dead end unless he could breach that tough body of his. Squinting, Zhuofan thought. Lucky yours truly comes prepared for anything. As for its effect, that remains to be seen. Zhuofan went right to it, and made a different sign as he jumped on the huge dragon. Yilin started and wondered. Soul harmony too. However, Zhuofan was no orthodox sacred beast inheritor. Soul harmony wasn't in his bag of tricks. Pa! With a flick of the tail, the azure dragon turned and darted through the air further and further away. Yilin froze in shock. What the hell? We're in the middle of something here. And he bails? How is he even a sacred beast inheritor? Then came Zhuofan's enervating taunt. Yilin, the time's almost up. We'll settle things next time. So that's why. The punk knows he can't fight, so he wants a draw. Yilin figured out his motive and exploded in rage. In a sacred beast battle, it was all about meeting power with power, not running away from it. You had me beaten around like a punching bag. But the second things look tough. You just take off? Do you think it's that easy? Yilin went right after him. Zhuofan snickered, revealing his evil smile. Ultimate Clarity Sect's disciples were worried. Senior brother Zhuofan is a bag full of dirty tricks. It can't be that junior brother's going to fall for another, can it? He shouldn't. Wu Qingqiu shook his head. Junior brother is now without weakness. His earlier trick won't work again, and the only way to defeat junior brother is by raw power. Chapter 705. I'll think about it later. Chapter 705. I'll think about it later. Proofreader, Papatonks. Whoosh! A huge figure shot through the air, straight for Demon Scheming Sect's disciples. The disciples saw Zhuofan was riding his dragon soul at them with the even more dreaded Yilin on his tail. They instantly panicked as they fled and cursed. There are so many other better directions when choosing to escape. Why did you have to come to us? Why are you leading death straight at us? We didn't do anything to you to die at another's hand. They were all trying to escape the area as quickly as possible. Danqing Shen was also cursing. What's the punk up to this time? Why is he moving the battle here? Does he know I'm hiding here and wants me to lend a hand? Damn kid, that will expose me. With no choice and raving in his mind about Zhuofan's rash behavior, he hid in a corner somewhere where the monitoring arrays couldn't find him. Only his mind was still cursing. Damn brat, I'll get you for this. Exalted Double Dragons looked lost. Exalted Hei Ran said, Hey old timer, what's he up to this time? In this particular situation, even we can see that Yilin has covered all bases. No matter what tricks he is pulling, only meeting his opponent head-on wouldn't produce any results. Ha ha ha, true. Exalted by Mei smiled. But did this kid ever follow common sense? Just like moments ago, how many here actually thought that the soul battle would go through another shift? Exalted Hei Ran smiled as well. You're right. All this kid does come as a shock. But now, Yilin has combined his soul and body. This fight has now changed from a soul battle to a melee one. You might as well say he's without flaw. What plan could the kid possibly have? Wait. Exalted by Mei gave him a look, and then nodded. Everyone else thought the same thing, looking at Zhuofan in worry. Yilin, now having united his soul and body, his speed was off the charts, catching up to Zhuofan in seconds. Looking back with a frown, Zhuofan made a sign, and had his huge right speed up. Ha ha ha, don't waste your breath. You're too slow. Yilin cackled, his eyes red. No matter what dirty little scheme you have cooked up, it's nothing my perfect form can't handle. The only way is to break my body to reach my soul. But you lost in melee to me already. Well, I wouldn't be so quick to judge. Zhuofan squinted, glancing back to see the thunder ring that got shaken off earlier was close. He smiled and shouted, Shower. Shriek. The piercing cry rang throughout the sky, just as Zhuofan's mount passed the ring. With Yilin close behind him, purple thunder crackled out of it. A thunderbird 100 meters big and streaked by lightning appeared, and slammed into Yilin when he had his guard down. What? Yilin's eyes widened in shock. He was more than familiar with the purple lightning, and this purple lightning's level was way above what Zhuofan used. This was a true thunder phoenix. Shattering thunder claw. With a sharp shout, Shower flapped her wings, unleashing a deep rumble as she shot for Yilin. Then came the two sharp claws, flickering with deadly purple lightning, raking that chest covered in golden flames. It was a clash between the lightning above and the fire below. The two incredibly destructive forces clashed and unleashed a monumental explosion. Xiao's claw came down on Yi Lin's hard scales, just like how a spear screeched in contact with a tough shield. However, since Xiao's attack came out of the blue, he could not mount a defense, so two scales were pulled off. A patch of dark red was exposed on his chest. Yi Lin was taken over by severe pain and coughed blood as he was flung into the air. Everyone was dumbstruck, watching the Thunderbird gobsmacked. It displayed its grandeur as it flapped its wings with pride. Where did this spiritual beast come from? The Exalted were back on their feet again as they cried, "I knew it! Old-timer, see that?" Exalted Hei Ran said excitedly. The kid's plans go back from the start. He even had such a move taken into account. Exalted by Mei nodded. I doubted from the start. How did the kid lose his ring in the melee so easily? Now I see it was all planned out. He sent it flying to catch Yi Lin right when he least expected it. Which means one shouldn't get too confident, even if you're stronger. Today, Zhuofan had given Yi Lin a few harsh but good lessons. Wonder how many he'll remember, ha ha ha. Exalted Hei Ran turned to the Thunderbird with a frown. But with Yi Lin's strength, no average spiritual beast could scratch him. Just what beast is this? Exalted by Mei pondered before he said. It's just a 6th level spiritual beast, but far stronger than one. Not even a spiritual beast in the 8th level might be its match. It truly is strange. And from the looks of it, it resembles a thunder skylark yet far stronger. Ha ha ha, like master, like spirit animal. Zhuofan is a monster in himself, so of course, he raises a monstrous spirit animal. He's truly something. Exalted Hei Ran smiled. Exalted by Mei chuckled, casting his admiring gaze on Zhuofan. If Yi Lin were an unseen cultivating talent, then Zhuofan would be an all-round talent, just as astounding. Unlike Yi Lin's amazing cultivation, Zhuofan's incredible and broadened use of skill left them more impressed. After all, strength can only get you so far. Senior brother, look. I just knew the punk had a trick in mind. A disciple of the Ultimate Clarity sect pointed at Yi Lin's patch of red on his chest. Wu Qingqiu's face twitched as he hit the other guy's head. And your happy junior brother got duped? That's not what I meant. I just wanted to say that I saw through his trick. You call that seeing? It was just a wild guess. The punk set up so many tricks. Even an idiot can see that junior brother, in his perfect state, will get taken in. Glaring at him, Wu Qingqiu sighed. However, why did you brainless fools have to be right? The punk had another trick, and it worked. And where the hell did he find such a weird spiritual beast? There's no way the average spiritual beast can harm junior brother. The others frowned at Xiao, also shocked by her display. As Yi Lin's senior brothers, they knew how truly monstrous he was. They had seen many amazing spiritual beasts that couldn't even scratch him. So Yi Lin chose to overlook getting a pet himself, fighting all others with one without fear. But who'd have thought the day would come he'd suffer for it? It wasn't just about falling for another trick, but being hurt so much as well. He was hurt by a spiritual beast. Danqing Shen sighed at the flickering purple lights. This bird is out of this world, and so is its cunning handler. He finally understood that Zhuofan didn't just look for a good chance to get rid of his ring. He had planned on coming up with a good excuse for the exalted double dragons as well, that of sneak attacking Yi Lin. See what I did there? I used my ring to set up a trap. Danqing Shen running to the sacred mine and stealing Atlas sword has nothing to do with me. I'm innocent. Ha ha ha, this kid's mind is truly frightening. Shaking his head, Danqing Shen sighed. He was even sure Zhuofan came up with this tactic the minute he mentioned using the storage ring to slip in here. He had to take his hat off at this one. In the audience, Xie Tianshang and Chu Qingqing saw Qingqing and felt relieved. They had seen Xiao back in the esoteric debate. They felt closer to her because Zhuofan had brought her out again. She has grown so much over the years. Chu Qingqing looked with a soft gaze. Chapter 706, Reverse Scale. Chapter 706, Reverse Scale. Proofreader Papatonks. Father, he's amazing. I clawed him with all I had, but only managed to take 2 scales off. There's no real damage either. Xiaoer had flown back to Zhuofan in disappointment. Zhuofan's brow shook, his eyes grave. And this was from a sneak attack. For him not to have gotten a heavy wound even from that, shows his body is tough beyond measure. No average spiritual beast can scratch him. Squinting, Zhuofan looked at Yilin, who had been flung into the air like a ragdoll after the attack, yet his heart tensed. Xiaoer's attack was his last ace. If even that failed, all that was left was to fight head-on, the worst option from how he saw it. He knew fully well that would mean using a very dangerous move not just for his enemy, but for him too. It was the last thing he wanted to resort to. After all, he only came up with it a short while ago, and didn't even have time to test it. As the wind whistled, Yilin flipped into the air, spitting out blood on the ground. Whoosh! Yilin halted his movement and looked down at his chest and the exposed flesh. His face was a mask of rage, his eyes turning cruel. Ever since I inherited Master's drop of blood, having been implanted with one of his reverse scales to refine this golden dragon body, I have never been reduced to this state. Zhuofan, you're the first. Yilin glared back at Zhuofan, his eyes sometimes darting at Xiaoer filled with bloodthirst. A dragon's scales are his dignity, and you just crushed it. Zhuofan, you've really gone and pissed me off. Zhuofan's heart shivered, and now knew why this guy's body was so hard that even Xiaoer could barely harm him. He's just like me, having received a part of a sacred beast's body. His Qilin arm came from soaring Qilin's leg. That was what gave him such power. Yilin's scale armor came from decimating dragon ancestors' reverse scale, which is harder than anything. Dragons were covered in scales, but only that particular one at the back of their necks, the reverse scale, was the toughest and the best to draw out its power. In simple terms, touching it was the same as crossing the line no one could tolerate. Since he placed the reverse scale into him, and forged his body with a drop of dragon blood, he had made him nigh indestructible. No wonder he was so tough in this state. This was how much he valued the scales. Zhuofan just got 2 of those pulled off. It was no different than slapping him hard on the face. No wonder he said that he was just like Zhuofan, and only wanted to defeat Zhuofan. Now though, he really wanted him dead. Zhuofan's heart sank. Knowing this had stopped being a simple match to see who was stronger. Now his life was on the line. It was either one or the other. He wanted blood now. And if he won, my head will fly. So Zhuofan took a deep breath, and his eyes went cold. Xiaoer next to him noticed the change in mood and grew serious as well. Silence fell between the 2 sides, one of death. They no longer cared about a winner now, only to kill. Startled, Wu Qingqiu seemed to have sensed the shift as well. What's going on? Why do I feel a thick killing intent? Does that mean junior brother really wants blood? Can't be senior brother. That kid has always been carefree. He's been acting like he wants to kill but never going that far. Even when he was blindsided, he was only enraged. One disciple spoke confidently, but Wu Qingqiu waved him off. I've yet to see junior brother truly wishing to kill someone. Maybe because he never met anyone worthy enough to go that far. This time though, Wu Qingqiu frowned, filled with worry. As the team leader of the Ultimate Clarity Sect disciples, he did not want to see something happening to Yilin or Zhuofan. In the fights seen the past few days, everyone's style and character were laid bare, and everyone had an understanding of each other. They saw how they related, how similar they were. Just as Zhuofan wanted to go further as they did on their path. That was why he didn't want to see him fall. Seeing how this shifted into a death match, his heart was hesitating. The exalted double dragons noticed the shift thanks to their years of experience. This stillness is eerie. Exalted He Ran spoke heavily. Exalted by Mei nodded. The 2 kids are going for the kill. No matter what, these 2 are Western Land's future. They can't fall here. If it comes to it, we old-timers will have to violate Double Dragon Gathering's rules for the first time. It will be a severe blow to our impartial image, but worth it. Exalted He Ran nodded, but then sighed. Old timer. When Sheng went through so much trouble, we pacified the lands in the name of fairness. Have we turned soft or have our principles changed? Exalted Bai Mei shook his head in silence. Exalted He Ran did not speak anymore. He knew well about the regret the two felt about how they handled Dan Shen's matter. It had festered for so long and so much that they felt the fairness they had groomed all these years no longer looked as important. Xiao attack! Zhuo Fan shouted and rode his dragon soul as he shot for Yi Lin. Xiao shrieked alongside him. Zhuo Fan had run out of tricks and schemes. All that was left was to meet blow for blow. The two men and one bird clashed. Yi Lin, in his new form, was a mighty challenge. He didn't suffer even against Zhuo Fan and Xiao. The screech and clanging of metal resounded as the dangerous shockwaves traveled everywhere. Yi Lin's body was harder than steel. No matter how hard Zhuo Fan hit, it didn't do much. At the same time, he was having a hard time resisting the incoming blows. Since he was combined in soul and body, all the strikes were packed with not just the golden dragon's power, but its searing flames as well. Zhuo Fan had no choice but to keep shifting his dragon soul. The four variations could take an occasional hit or two, but Zhuo Fan's soul was under threat once more. Fortunately, he had a helper, Qiao. Being born out of purple lightning, and imposing like the thunder phoenix, she would meet the golden flames without fear. The purple lightning rained down on Yi Lin's body, and exploded when meeting the flames. Yi Lin had no choice but to shift some of them for defense. Qiao's purple lightning was unlike the Zhuo Shuo Fan's purple dragon used. That was a power gained after being trained for years. It had reached such a degree, and Qiao might just be the new thunder phoenix. Yi Lin could not ignore the power of a sixth heaven purple lightning, and had to defend with his golden flames, thus giving Zhuo Fan some breathing room. Even so, the pair had yet to do any real damage ever since that last sneak attack. In fact, the two were being pushed back under Yi Lin's onslaught. The fight had entered a stalemate. Despite the obvious discrepancy in strength, the two sides had no way of defeating the other for a while. Zhuo Fan knew he was at a disadvantage, but still kept his cool. He knew the time was almost up, and the fight would be judged as a draw. While he wanted to win, he was not that desperate. He knew Yi Lin wanted to win much more than him. When Yi Lin was restless enough, he would get an opening to use. That was why good things happened to those who waited. Seeing through Zhuo Fan's intent, or maybe he showed it on purpose, Yi Lin was getting tense and impatient. He wanted to strike Zhuo Fan down for good, but Qiao would not let him. Time was running out. Bang! Yi Lin threw a bunch of scales, and Zhuo Fan used the Azure Dragon to mitigate the explosions. Yi Lin wanted to claw the Azure Dragon, but Qiao butted in, and the impact of the purple lightning sent him flying and refocused on defense. He might have the advantage, but his hands were tied. Blast it! I have to get rid of that damn bird and fast. Yi Lin gnashed his teeth. Yin-Yang Dragon Claw. Yi Lin's eyes flashed and shot for Zhuo Fan. His hand turned into a claw enveloped by raging flames as he aimed at Zhuo Fan's heart. Zhuo Fan used the Qilin arm to block, but behind it he grinned. Kids these days have no patience, ha ha ha. Chapter 707 Orthodox. Chapter 707 Orthodox. Proofreader, Papatonks. Whoosh! The golden claw whistled through the air, and was about to strike while Zhuo Fan used his Qilin arm as a shield, ready to take it on. The Qilin arm comes from the soaring Qilin. At the very least, it won't get me broken bones if you hit me anywhere else. It will take your blow. Shriek. Qiao rushed in support, wanting to use this chance to strike. The claw was about to hit. If Yi Lin kept attacking, the claw would do nothing to Zhuo Fan's Qilin arm. Only the golden flames would seep in a little, and barely cause any harm. Why else would I use that arm for all my attacks? Then Qiao would come bearing brutal purple lightning, to make another heavy wound on him, after focusing all he had in that claw. It was without a doubt a bad tactic to use this attack. This scene had been recurring many times already. When one attacked with everything, The other would come to take advantage of the opening, only to force the attacker to shift to defense. This time was no different. Only Yi Lin was at the end of his patience. He would rather suffer another hit from Chao to get Zhuo Fan. It was an eye for an eye. You dare, boy. With 2 against 1, going for mutual harm isn't worth it. Zhuo Fan once again intimidated him, while sneering inside. He's rash enough now. Yi Lin snorted. Mutual harm? Humph. I might have fallen for your tricks so far, but that's going to change. This time, I'm going to get rid of your spirit animal. Yi Lin was gone, and left behind him his golden flames. It was like he was still attacking Zhuo Fan, but lacking in power. But just the golden flames wouldn't be able to even singe Zhuo Fan's clothes, since Zhuo Fan had the Azure Dragon and Demon Transformation art to absorb it. However, Yi Lin's figure appeared next to the golden flames and unleashed another claw, but this time at Chao. Everyone gasped. Since Zhuo Fan revealed his purple dragon, they knew the purple lightning was a force to be reckoned with. It was brutal and powerful but lacked in defense. So Yi Lin fainted, striking Zhuo Fan, who had the Qilin arm for defense. While going for the defenseless Chao would show much better results. Chao would be gravely wounded if struck, the two's cooperation would fail, and Yi Lin would gain a real advantage. Dealing with Zhuo Fan later would only take a minute. This was the most definitive moment in this long and bitter match. Chao was startled, having not expected this. Feeling on her feathers the sharpness of that dragon claw, she tensed. Yin-Yang Dragon Claw. One real, one fake. Yi Lin snickered as his strike was about to land. He laughed. Zhuo Fan, you schemed for so long against me, but now it's my turn. My strike against you is fake, while the one against your spirit animal is real. This time, your cooperation failed, ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan's brow shook as he floated in the air. The audience grew tense, having not expected Yi Lin would also start using feints. Wu Qingqiu chuckled. Ha ha ha, junior brother finally used his head. Not that he's slow, but that his opponents were never worth the effort. They all felt it was curtains for this long and exciting match. However, Zhuo Fan's grin was most devious. His right eye flashed golden. Ha ha ha. I don't really care how you go all out, just as long as you do. Divine Eye of the Void first stage shift. Whoosh. In a flash, Zhuo Fan and Chao did the OL switcheroo, so that Zhuo Fan was on the receiving end of Yi Lin's real strike. Yi Lin cried out. What the hell? Where's that damn poultry? Just then, the golden flame image was flapped away by Chao's wings, and she unleashed her purple lightning storm, and clawed at Yi Lin's chest. The last claw had taken away his hard scales, and this one was bound to send purple lightning right into his innards. This had long stopped being an issue of winning for Yi Lin. He had to first protect his little life from being cooked from the inside. Wu Qingqiu cried out and tensed. The exalted shot to their feet, and were just as nervous. It all happened so fast. 1 minute it was Yi Lin's obvious advantage, and the next, his target switched places, putting him in grave danger. SSS. Gulping, Yi Lin was scared out of his mind. He halted his attack on Zhuo Fan, and tried to get into a stance to defend, though it would take some time. Left with no choice, Yi Lin could only lean, taking Chao's sharp claws on his back, and letting her remove 2 more glittering scales. Scarlet blood flowed from his back, and he gnashed his teeth from the pain. The sudden heavy blow had also interrupted the claw now meant for Zhuo Fan. Even after careful planning, he was still the one ending up hurt again, while his adversary was untouched. Chao flew back to Zhuo Fan, throwing away the scales in her claws. Father, he just turned around, and I couldn't get him in the heart. It's fine. He's just too quick to react. In fact, we dealt a great blow this time. He now has 2 weaknesses. We'll now resort to pincer strikes and see how long he'll last, ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan laughed as he snickered at Yi Lin. The clearer it is you can win with brawn, the more you need to use your head. Don't you know using your faults to fight an enemy's strengths is dumb? Trying to use feints against me, who had been among schemes all his life. Kid, you're unbearably naive. Yi Lin's face twitched in anger, gritting his teeth. The audience had to agree on that. They thought Yi Lin finally played Zhuo Fan, only to be toyed with instead. Getting trapped as you lay a trap must sting. Wen Tao sighed, seeing Yi Lin boiling mad, using brains to crush the other. Yi Lin is clearly stronger, but Zhuo Fan keeps leading him, making this focused disciple lose his bearing. If he had kept to his beliefs, he wouldn't have to suffer so much. Focused? Xie Tiansheng raised an eyebrow. Wen Tao nodded. Yes, cultivators like us all have a focus as we advance. Some do it for power, some for status, some for fame, and some for supremacy. Each of us is walking the path we want that lead to the birth of personal beliefs and convictions. Isn't Yi Lin blunt? Then he should just take any adversary head-on. But after meeting Zhuo Fan, he's been toyed with so many times that he lost his way and stooped to fumbling on the other's path. He's been strung along all this time. Wen Tao looked above and smiled. The time's almost up. Now Yi Lin will become even more restless. He won't fall for another trick soon, and Zhuo Fan won't snatch a win soon either. It'll be a draw. But then he heard Zhuo Fan looking at the pretty sky and exclaimed, "Oh my, would you look at the time? It's going to be a draw at this rate." Staggering, Wen Tao stared at Zhuo Fan, then shook his head. Zhuo Fan is really devious. Even in the last moment, he can't help but prod Yi Lin, wishing for victory just as much. Zhuo Fan is savage and cunning to stir the other even more. Xie Tiansheng chuckled. That's always been his nature. Huff. Gasping, Yi Lin was close to exhaustion both mentally and physically. He glared at the bird and man in hatred, but with no way of finishing them off. This frickin' punk is too sly. If he were too rash, he'd be duped. If he went too slow, he'd suffer for it even worse. The adversary always aimed to toy with his mind, thus making him unable to cope. He was now left confused and lost as to how to proceed. It was his first time meeting such an adversary. He was clearly stronger, yet could do nothing to win. Just as he was filled with confusion, a shout broke through the haze. "Junior brother, he's rushing you on purpose. Don't fall for it. If you don't know what to do, ask your heart." Shaken up, Yi Lin looked back to see his head senior brother, Wu Qingqiu. Chapter 708 Win. Chapter 708 Win. Proofreader, Papatonks. Yi Lin's face twitched, and it finally dawned on his foggy mind. He had been strung along until he was lost, veering off his path. With a deep breath, Yi Lin regained his calm and closed his eyes. "Master, my sect is going through the outer sect competition tomorrow. There can only be 10 new inner disciples. But I'm just an outer disciple in the 21st place. What do I do?" A young Yi Lin asked the dragon ancestor. The huge dragon I stared coldly as his voice rumbled. "Get rid of all those 20 people in front of you." "But I can't beat them." "Beat them all, or don't bother seeing me again." The dragon ancestor said coldly, then turned his back. Face sinking, the young Yi Lin felt put on the spot. "They're better than me in martial arts and cultivation methods. How can I beat them? And the first 10 get to be inner disciples. I only need to beat 10. Worthless. Get lost." "Master, why are you cussing at me? Did I say something wrong?" Humans are devious and seize any chance to win, while also being weak. But if you think of yourself like that, you're not worthy of calling me master. The huge dragon spoke. Among spiritual beasts, every creature knows its position. Its place is clear to all. Do you know why? Yi Lin shook his head. "Why would I know that crap?" The dragon ancestor mocked. "That's because since ancient times, since the primal chaos, once a spiritual beast lost, its rank is set. Every generation knows this. Once you lose, you will always lag behind. We, the 5 great sacred beasts, are at the peak of all spiritual beasts. We had fought among ourselves, but we could never win against each other, so we stood together. But in their hearts, they all wished to stand above everyone, to be the one true king. That's why our path, that of spiritual beasts, is to win. Winning means life, glory, and respect. It doesn't matter who is in front of you, how weak or strong, or how many. You are to remember my words, boy. If you are to be my disciple, You just have to win. Even if there were 100 people in front of you in the sect, you still have to go through all of them. You have to risk your life and fight them to win. There are still 3 months as well. I will see your progress afterward. The dragon ancestor closed his eyes and curled up to sleep. The young Yilin bowed and withdrew. 3 months later, a flash of fire revealed Yilin once more. His meridians were crushed and hanging by a thread. Master, I won, Yilin wheezed out. The dragon ancestor cast a cold gaze. All of them? I beat all of them. I staked my life, and they thought I was crazy. None wanted to meet me head-on. Finally, I came out first. With a faint smile, Yilin continued. Master, you were right. Humans are opportunistic and weak. None dared to face me, but now my body is ruined, and the inner sect doesn't want me anymore. Someone even laughed at me for being a fool, but I didn't care. I won, and I felt great. It was all worth it. The dragon ancestor nodded. The average man is blinded by fame and can't see the value of winning. You, however, now know the value in being first and have earned your right to be decimating dragon ancestor's disciple. The dragon ancestor's brow creased as a burning drop of blood flew out from between. It glittered like a ruby as it settled on Yilin's forehead. The dragon ancestor then clawed the back of his neck and came out with a sharp scale, the hardest reverse scale. Like a huge quilt, he settled it over Yilin. The dragon ancestor then breathed out golden flames onto the kid. After a full 49 days passed, the true dragon ancestor inheritor, the one we saw today, was born. He also inherited his master's path to win. Losing once meant losing everything. Opening his eyes, Yilin had no hesitation left in them. He knew his path, his beliefs. Bouncing around from one trick to another was not a sacred beast style. For a sacred beast disciple, all that mattered was to win. Even if he was facing a fierce pair, he just had to stake it all and win. Yilin's spirit was lifted and caused even Zhuofan to shudder. Xiao, be careful. This punk has made up his mind. He won't fall for it again. This time we're fighting to the end, Zhuofan warned. He had seen his fair share of resolute people like Yilin, and all of them were a big thorn to deal with. He had to keep his guard up no matter what came. Pa! Yilin put his hands together as he went through a series of signs. When he finished, his entire body exploded with power. The powerful decimating golden flame surged higher and higher like an endless sea. Zhuofan was in shock. Just what is he trying to do? The exalted double dragons were stunned as well. They could see that Yilin held in his eyes the desire to win, one that drove him mad. Ooh! Yilin made the final sign, and the torrent of golden flames rolled around him, and the image of a huge dragon appeared behind him, baring its fangs in savagery. The flaming inferno gathered around the dragon head, and was ready to strike at any second. This? Wu Qingqiu gasped. Is this soul scorching? Junior brother is going to burn his soul just to win? What? Ultimate Clarity Sect's disciples were in disbelief. That's only used when one fights to the very end. If not careful, he could burn his entire soul away. The enemy only got him twice with his tricks, so why must he use such a definite strike? This is too extreme. You don't understand. This is the real junior brother. Wu Qingqiu shook his head and sighed. Did you all forget that outer sect competition? How did junior brother become the first to enter the inner sect? The others recalled those brutal fights and nodded. I've never seen a crazier lunatic in my life. Just to win, he staked his life. To the point, he got everyone so scared they soiled their pants. He even managed to beat the first outer disciples, but he broke his body to do it. The inner sect elders saw him ruined and didn't want him. He then asked senior brother to take him to the secret realm. Then after 49 days, he returned as a true genius. This made people talk about the secret realm as being not just a heaven to refine the soul, but the body as well. A shame that it never worked for anyone else. What you don't know is that after I saw his desperate struggle, since he yearned to go to the secret realm, I chose to honor his last wish. But when I left his body, I soon found it gone. I used to think someone took it, only to find out 49 days later that he entered the inner sect. I believe there's a real secret in there, but he didn't want to tell anyone. Sighing, Wu Qingqiu said, now I understand that was where he found his path. Now his mind is back to that time, and he sees Zhuo Fan as his bitter enemy. Everyone turned to Yi Lin and nodded. Ever since Yi Lin was reborn, no one could force him to show all he had, until Zhuo Fan came along. That was why the kid was back to that time when he staked his life. Biting winds and searing hot air washed over Zhuo Fan, who was creasing his brows hard at the problem he faced. Such power was clearly meant for him and Steward together. He has stopped trying to deal with us one by one, and wants to end us together. This is a madman no matter how one sees him. The best way to deal with a team was to pick them out individually. Taking them all out at the same time was too dangerous and pricey. Yi Lin, however, was a sacred beast inheritor. In his eyes, winning was everything, and worth everything. Steward, no matter what happens, you must stay behind me. I can take it. Zhuo Fan warned carefully. Steward nodded, despite the odd glimmer in her eyes. Chapter 709, Divine Eye of the Void's Fifth Stage. Chapter 709, Divine Eye of the Void's Fifth Stage. Proofreader, Papatonks. Who? Golden scorching flames surrounded Yi Lin. That concentrated and frightening power erupted now and then, singing more and more of the valley's flora. Demon Scheming Sect and Ultimate Clarity Sect's disciples had long since ducked for cover 4 miles out, yet never taking their eyes off this grand and brutal battle. Yet even at this distance, the burning heat made them all sweat, only to be vaporized the next instant. All of them were strong kids of their generations, except for Yuer, in the third layer radiant stage, who had to take cover 40 miles away. Regardless, they all had difficulty resisting the fire, feeling as if it might pulverize them any second. Yi Lin's burning soul had made the decimating dragon ancestor's golden flames reach a new height of power, a power that could wipe anything out of existence. Even the audience watching the screen seemed to feel that dreadful power around them. The exalted stood up in shock and worry. Could Zhuo Fan even take such a strike? If their lives were put in danger, they would definitely intervene. Chu Qingcheng and the girls held their fists tight, their brows scrounged up in deep worry for Zhuo Fan's fate. If others could feel close to dying so far away, it went without saying that Zhuo Fan was getting the worst of it. Thick black energy covered his body. Heaven-devouring demonic dragon king coiled its body to protect him. It used the demon transformation art to refine this scorching heat. Zhuo Fan's eyes shook and grew tense as he used his dragon soul to keep Steward out of harm's way behind him. He said, Steward, this might be the last clash to settle this fight. Help me at the start, but then you are to leave as fast as possible. Leave this to me. Yes, father. Steward gave a hard nod, but her eyes shone with hesitation, something Zhuo Fan completely missed in his precarious state. He was only focused on Yi Lin. This has to be the punk's last-ditched effort. I just got to live through this, and Zhuo Fan's gaze became hard as his hands made signs. In the 11th hour of the fight, these two were ready to stake it all. Zhuo Fan was going to use every dirty trick and skill he had learned to block this attack Yi Lin would unleash after he burned his soul to unleash it. Yi Lin watched Zhuo Fan with a ragged breath. The strain on his soul was immense, but his eyes had never been more focused. His thirst for victory was like no other. In a fight of sacred beast inheritors, the last winner shall be me. Yi Lin shouted. Zhuo Fan and that pet of yours, take this decimating dragon roar. Roar. The huge dragon image around Yi Lin roared, shaking the world, the mountains and the skies. With this roar, the golden flames shot for Zhuo Fan like a flamethrower, disintegrating anything in its path with its deadly heat. Zhuo Fan was overwhelmed. The exalted were in shock. They had never seen such focused power. Moreover, this power was focused on the decimating golden flame, which was already deadly to begin with. Just taking this attack would wipe one out of this world. Dan Qingshun, hiding somewhere to the side, jerked, and his fingers were moving, wanting to come to the rescue. Against such power, Not even a peak ethereal stage expert could survive it, let alone Zhuofan in the radiant stage. Just as he took a step, he halted. If he went out there now, all his efforts would be lost. He found himself unable to make a decision. The exalted double dragons saw this scene with tense looks, ready to step in as well. However, they were hoping, more than anything, that Zhuofan would give them a shocking surprise. Zhuofan's brow shook. Not even he had foreseen the other would unleash such an almighty attack. His heart was quivering, but the die was cast. All he could do now was shout, "Shower now." "Yes, father." Shower spread her wings, and flickering purple lightning gathered within them as they cracked the air. Heaven-destroying thunder phoenix. Rumble. The earth shook, and the air quivered as Shower's flap of her wings sent a 300-meter large thunderbird straight for the incoming fire. At the same time, Zhuofan shouted as well. Wraith Style's third move, Necro Dragon Screech. Roar. The demonic dragon shifted into the Golden Flame's bane, the vaulting Dragon King. The huge dragon roared as it charged, its azure flame surging over its body. It combined with the purple Thunderbird to unleash an even greater power. The audience was at the edge of their seats, fervent and expectant. They were all excited seeing these three mighty strikes being unleashed. Even Yin Mo, a genius in his own right, was overwhelmed. Yi Lin and Zhuofan's fight had to be the strongest clash in thousands of years of double dragon gathering. None of the geniuses of Western lands could hold a candle to them. Now they wanted to see who among these two would be the best disciple in Western lands, the future best in Western lands. Boom! The three powers finally came to a head. Only the audience watched in awe as Shower and Zhuofan's powers were crushed almost instantly by Yi Lin's golden flames. They went right through the Thunderbird and Azure Flames in an overwhelming defeat. Everyone was tense, and Zhuofan's face fell, his brow soaked with sweat. Yi Lin's attack was beyond anything he had dreamed of. He had some guesses, but not to this extent. In the face of such might, all the ways he thought of to deal with it left him shaking. They were not enough. Now that it had come to this, he could only do all he could, and leave it to fate. Divine Eye of the Void's fifth stage, Void Wall. Zhuofan's right eye flashed with 5 golden halos, and 100 meters around him formed a spatial barrier. This was the unexpected benefit of the 3-day soul training he went through before this fight, allowing him to set up spatial walls to defend. Alas, he never had a chance to get familiar with this move, and didn't know if it would keep back the flames. Zhuofan tensed as the sweat mounted. Bam! The golden flamethrower slammed into the barrier, and was stopped in its tracks. It worked. Zhuofan was happy, yet the audience was stumped as to what he did now. The exalted double dragons tensed, then admired. This kid has an endless bag of tricks. However, no one got the chance to breathe easier as cracks resounded, spreading all over the air around Zhuofan like a spiderweb. Zhuofan also felt his right eye was on fire from all the pain. But he gritted his teeth. The 5 golden halos were still shining, even as blood seeped out. Bam! Finally, the barrier cracked open, and the burning flames went straight for Zhuofan, even if more subdued than before. It was clear that the void wall was truly strong. Despite failing in the end, it brought Zhuofan hope. It might be strong, but it can be blocked. Ack! Zhuofan held his bleeding right eye as he wailed. Yet his mouth was perked in a smile. Since this barrier works, I'll just slow the attack down bit by bit. Zhuofan ignored the wound in his eye, and took away his arms to reveal 4 golden halos. Divine Eye of the Void's 4th stage, Space Crusher. The powerful vibrations consumed 100 meters around him. Yet the fierce flames were still getting closer, as if they were unaffected. The scorching flames were so strong that they actually burned the oscillations. Zhuofan's heart tensed as he watched incredulously. Space Crusher had no effect whatsoever. Now he had nothing left to wear down the flames. That meant he would have to bear the heat all by himself. Zhuofan's heart sank, his eyes reflecting the still almighty burning flames. His face had never been more grave. Chapter 710 Sacrifice. Chapter 710 Sacrifice. Proofreader, Papatonks. If I knew it was going to be like this, I'd have used that tiebreaker. Though I've just learned it, and it's still dangerous. It was not only dangerous for himself, but for the enemy as well. Am I seeking stability too much? Seeing the flames right on top of him, Zhuofan was filled with regret. Why couldn't he have done like Yi Lin did, and risk his life to unleash all he had? Alas, it was already too late to do anything. Taking a deep breath, Zhuofan finally decided to face the golden flames head-on. He sent the vaulting Dragon King to coil around him and wrap him in thick azure flames. This was his last chance, to use the azure flame's quality as a mediator between yin and yang to subdue the golden flame's brutality. But with how the azure flame and golden flame engender each other, it might combine with the golden flame. He had to first wear it down, or with how strong the golden flame was, it would simply scatter his aside. The crux was, after the azure flame was blown away, all that was left was his defenseless dragon soul. This was his last defense. Afterward his soul might perish. Outside of using the azure dragon, he had no other way. That was why he was finally giving his all in this fight. Frowning, Zhuofan glared at the dazzling flames. As they drew closer, his sweat kept pouring out. He offered one last prayer of hope. Let this be enough. Yi Lin looked on coldly as he gasped. It's no use. I burned my own soul to unleash this decimating golden flame. A half-baked sacred beast inheritor, like you stands no chance. Farewell, my fated adversary. Bam! The flame slammed into the azure dragon at last. The powerful force made the dragon shake and howl in pain. Zhuofan's mind was overcome with pain as well. It felt like his head was exploding from the thousands of blades sinking into it. But he held on still. He had the azure flame face the incoming attack, wanting to submerge the golden flames in an ocean of azure. He had no chance. The long stream of scorching flames was like a needle, piercing the azure flame sea. Even as they touched, the azure flame offered no resistance. He was lucky enough if his own power wasn't worn out instead. He had never imagined that Yi Lin's attack would be condensed to such a degree. It was so strong that his last-ditch effort was useless. The azure flame had no way of chipping away at the attack. Not a damn use it had. Going at it with such a defense was practically suicide. If he had known, he would have done that. That was what he should have done from the start. Suddenly, Zhuofan's body shook from endless despair and regret. Unfortunately, it was too late to come out of this one. As the golden flames came closer, a burning storm swept the entire body of the azure dragon and immediately removed its flames. Before the golden flames reached it, its heat was constantly burning the dragon's soul. Zhuofan's head was boiling as he spat out crimson blood. It's over. Once the flames entered the dragon's soul, he was a goner. He had been aware of Yi Lin's power, but it seemed that he still underestimated his opponent. Even if he wanted to use a real desperate move now, it was far too late. This fight was going to take his life away. Letting out a long breath, Zhuofan was overcome with regret. Chu Qingqing was distraught, her eyes tearing over. Xian Xiaoyu snickered all the while at his misfortune. The exalted double dragons were just about to put an end to this fight. However, a cry pierced everyone's ears. They all saw as purple lightning flickered, and a familiar figure floated in front of the dragon's soul. Zhuofan squinted, and he saw the tens of meters of a big purple bird Qiaoer. Did he not tell her to stay clear? Why? Qiaoer faced the golden flames coming at the azure dragon without remorse. Wait, Qiaoer! Finally dawning on him, Zhuofan shouted. But Qiaoer, streaked with purple lightning, had already met the golden flames. The purple lightning and the golden flames were brutal powers between heaven and earth, and as they clashed, it was almost like a resonance, issuing endless explosions. Maybe Qiaoer had used every ounce of purple lightning she had as the golden flames were stopped. Even though the mighty flames were stopped, its power was still incredible. The golden flame swallowed Qiaoer in its searing heat, even as her eyes were stubbornly holding on, using every drop of energy she had. even willing to use her life just to stop the flames. In the clashes between the purple lightning and golden flames, the flames were subsiding, seen with the naked eye. The purple lightning was like a chisel, chipping away at its power. The golden flame was like a viper, tearing at Shower at every chance it got, burning her plumes. She did not care, holding on with all she had to crush the golden flames. Zhuofan's heart was in pain. He knew now that Shower was sacrificing herself for his sake. Finally, the golden flames made a last bang as they dissipated. Shower was now burned all over, the purple flickering on her body long since exhausted. She just plopped on the ground powerlessly. Zhuofan shook all over as he took one hard step after another closer to her. Chu Qingqing held her mouth, her eyes glistening with tears. Thank you, Shower. Such a protective spirit animal. Wen Tao sighed. Xia Tianshang was the most familiar with Zhuofan and sighed as well. Zhuofan raised this spiritual beast as his daughter. I see. No wonder she's so loyal. Wen Tao gave Shower a long look of admiration. Xia Tianshang shook his head. Senior brother, you didn't understand me. I mean to say that now that Zhuofan's daughter Shower lays dead, he will be truly enraged. The last time that happened, he ate his enemy alive. Just thinking about it gives me the chills. But can he even do it? Yilin's power, Wen Tao frowned. Xia Tianshang smiled with a shake of his head. In the esoteric debate, he wasn't that guy's match either. Trust me when I say this, those that he wants dead have no chance of living. Wen Tao's heart shook in shock, and looked at Zhuofan with a grave face. Foolish girl, didn't I tell you to run? Now that you're so big, you won't listen to your dad? Slowly walking to Shower, Zhuofan bent down, caressing the sizzling body, burned by the golden flames. He felt one last trace of energy in her, and rushed to take out a pill to give her, smiling calmly. Yet that calm hid a dreadful bloodlust. After they heard his words, they all shivered to their bones. Yilin panted from that heavy exertion and shouted, Zhuofan, your spirit animal had saved you from death. But it's only a matter of time now. It shows that I will win by staking it all, while you who don't have such power will lose. Yilin was once again making signs, gathering the same power he used before to unleash it again. Wait, junior brother, he doesn't have the spirit animal's help now. You don't have to go that far. Wu Qingqiu cried out. Yilin didn't even hear him as he kept going, even as his breath grew heavier and face paler. There wasn't much time, and Zhuofan was beyond cunning. He wanted to win, and that meant he had to use all he had to destroy his opponent, and leave no room for error. This was his beast path. Victory above all else. Tightening his fists, Zhuofan stood up and gnashed his teeth with bloodshot eyes. You want to stake it all? Ha ha ha, you asked for it. Chapter 711, The Deadliest Variant. Chapter 711, The Deadliest Variant. Proofreader Papatonks. These kids still want to fight. Exalted He Ran watched the battlefield intently as he sighed. It had now stopped being a simple match to declare a winner. It's a battle to the death. Just what grudge could they have to go so far? Exalted by Mei sighed. Let's ignore that for now. Let's assume Yilin's soul can take unleashing that attack again. Zhuofan would still have no chance of stopping it. It is a high chance that this fight will end in both of them dying. If we could, calling it a draw would be better than losing both. Judge, how much time is there? Looking below, Exalted He Ran asked. The judge checked the sun's position and bowed. Exalted, there are still 15 minutes left. Enough for one more hard clash. I hope those two will be fine. Exalted by Mei shook his head. Both of them looked at the two kids with pity. A mountain can only have one tiger. Who? The golden flames flared hotter and hotter, as the image of a huge dragon head formed behind Yilin, glaring at Zhuofan. The audience gasped, but mostly cheered at the development. It was a real eye-opener to see such a destructive attack being unleashed. Now that it was happening again, they couldn't be happier. Chu Qingqing was wrought with worry once more. The girls saw how Zhuofan had nothing that could deal with such an attack, not even to defend himself. Young sect leader Steward Zhua. Just be reasonable and give up. You've done more than enough. There's no need for you to give your life for the sect. Fiend Yang prayed, fearing the worst. Yen Mo frowned as he clenched his fists. Yu Mei next to him asked, Senior brother, are you sympathizing with your once enemy, or cheering Yi Lin to finish him? The strong need not sympathy. All I know is this. After this, one of them will be the best disciple in Western lands, the future best in Western lands. Yen Mo's brow shook, yet even as he spoke, his eyes never left Zhuofan. Yu Mei scowled at this and shook her head. He already picked a side, yet he just doesn't want to admit it. He hoped Zhuofan would win this. And while Zhuofan wouldn't admit it to him, the two had become friends through the fight they had. As demonic cultivators, Zhuofan had earned his truest respect. That was why he hoped Zhuofan would win, despite knowing full well the hopes were slim at best. Everyone around the screen was eager to see the conclusion of this grand fight, especially the sect teams, all hoping Zhuofan would come out alive, even if losing. Only Zhao Dezhu, Xian Xiaoyu, and a few others were reveling in his misery. This punk will finally leave this world for good. Pa! Yi Lin's signs came to an end, and the power around him exploded in size, while his body grew weaker. However, he didn't care, grinning as he laughed, Zhuofan, I win. Are you ready for the decimating dragon roar? With a roar, a spray of molten golden flames spewed straight for Zhuofan just like before. The crowd was stretched taut, afraid of missing anything. Zhuofan perked up his mouth and wiped the blood off. He looked at the unconscious and badly wounded Qiaoer, and gave a shake of his head. Qiaoer, did you know your dad never owes anyone anything, especially favors? But today this debt I have to repay is heavy. You risked your life for me when I couldn't put mine on the line for myself. Ha ha ha, I'm such a fool. This time, even if it's now even more dangerous, I will do it. I will stake my life for you and obliterate that obnoxious punk. Zhuofan's hands began his own signs. The azure dragon's flames vanished, yet it didn't turn into another variation, returning back to its prismatic and original form as it guarded him. Startled, the crowd was taken by surprise. Right at the most crucial moment, he renounces his variance and goes for the basic dragon soul. Zhuofan closed his eyes as he finished the last sign with a vague smile. An azure flame flickered on the dragon's forehead. SSS. Purple lightning streaked its body like thousands of snakes. They reached the dragon head, where they vanished with a rumble. Dark mist, black as night, shifted all over the dragon, converging at the head once more and disappearing. Yi Lin was puzzled. Then an explosion happened, and the dragon head released the aura of 3 different powers. The azure flame burned on the forehead, with a purple streak flashing inside it. Then the black mist enveloped them all as a 4th power. Qilin's red glow covered them like a furnace to get them to combine. As they did, a terrible aura was unleashed. That's. The others could barely feel it, but Yi Lin, being the closest, felt its raw power rise. Grinning, Zhuofan said, You guessed it. This is my way of combining the 4 dragon souls. I didn't do it before because even I'm scared of this power, scared I can't control it, and kill myself with it. But now I thought that since I'm fighting with my life, I have to show something for it. If I die by failing to do it, then that's my luck. But if I succeed in combining them, then you're dead. Startled, Yi Lin looked overwhelmed as he stared intently at the dragon's forehead. Yet somehow, even as the powers mingled, they did not combine. It was also then that Yi Lin's spray of molten flames reached Zhuofan. Ha ha ha, your time's up. Maybe it can never combine at all. These powers all come from a sacred beast's raw trait. They are inherently repulsed by anything else. Maybe for Zhuofan or for himself. Yi Lin cackled as he saw his attack about to reach Zhuofan. Zhuofan simply stated, Yi Lin, you just don't get my cultivation method. I walk the common path of all the others. Moreover, the 5 great sacred beasts all come from the primal chaos, each wielding one aspect of it. Hasn't it ever occurred to you that they were once a whole? Ha ha ha, it might be just a wild guess, or the actual truth. Regardless, today one of us will die. If I die from my own combined power, instead of yours ain't a bad way to go either. Zhuofan's eyes flashed and he raised an eyebrow. By the way, since I figured the 5 powers could fuse, I find the 3 of them just lacking. So let's add another one. With a boom, on the dragon's forehead appeared a golden flame, the decimating golden flame. Wa-dash-a-chow, Yilin cried out. Dismissing him with a wave, Zhuofan fibbed. Easy now. It's just a smidgen my demonic dragon stole from you. Nothing to it. Then again, it is a great boost in my realization of combining these powers. After all, you need both gentle and brutal flames to get them to combine, ha ha ha. Zhuofan turned to the dragon head, eager for the result. Just like he thought. Since the golden flame was introduced, it began to quickly combine with the azure flame. Then the purple lightning constantly zapped them as it joined the fusion. It was all going quite smoothly. With the Qilin power as the furnace, demon transformation art the base, and the purple lightning as the medium, the 2 flames stabilized as they united. The searing heat of the golden flame was right on top of Zhuofan. The power was so much that it caused Zhuofan's white hair to wither. The audience gasped in worry. Some girls even cried out and looked away. A ripple spread from the dragon's forehead just then, and revealed a black flame, with streaks of purple flashing now and then. Its almighty power swept everything, disintegrating all in its path. Yilin's spray of flames had met its match as it stopped. It was more accurate to say that it did not stop at all. Even as it kept going, it was just being pulverized once past a certain point, so that it never reached Zhuofan. Zhuofan spewed blood and shook. He looked back at his dragon soul, and saw it twitch all over, as the black flame was going crazy. Just like I thought, the deadliest variant. I have no way of controlling it as I am. Its power is even above the 5 great sacred beasts. Zhuofan rejoiced inside, even as the blood kept pouring out of his mouth. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.